Chapter 2542. Inside a stone chamber in Eastern Imperial City, Ji Yuzhong was practicing the Void Riddle. The last of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, the Void Riddle, was definitely the most profound of them all because it was created by the supreme Tao ancestor when he was at his strongest. Some people said that the 9th secret was the nemesis of the first 8, a truly invincible secret art. At this moment, countless runes appeared in the stone chamber. The interior of the chamber formed a world of its own. Being inside was akin to entering a battlefield. Rumble, in the dusky sky, chariots charged towards Ji Yuzhong. On each chariot stood an incomparably powerful general. Come! Ji Yuzhong stomped on the ground with his right foot. Borrowing the force of this stomp, he soared into the sky and pounced into the battle formation that was charging towards him. This was a killing move created by the battlefield. It was as if one was in a battlefield, fighting with all their might in order to stimulate the potential of those cultivating in the battlefield. This was because a cultivator's potential could only be stimulated at the juncture of life and death. However, this kind of battlefield was nothing to Ji Yuzhong. He threw a punch and the dozen chariots that were charging towards him immediately collapsed in the void. Too weak. Ji Yuzhong didn't feel any sense of accomplishment. The cultivation grounds of Eastern Imperial City were only at this level. In fact, it wasn't easy to set up a stone chamber like this. Using an array formation to evolve a battle domain was not something that just anyone could use. Rumble, at this moment, over 1,000 chariots appeared before Ji Yuzhong, emitting powerful energy fluctuations. They formed into a battle formation and charged towards Ji Yuzhong. The power of over 1,000 chariots gathered together was enough to slaughter saints. Even Ji Yuzhong couldn't help but be moved at this moment. This should be it. Ji Yuzhong's fighting spirit had finally been ignited. Rays of golden light surged out from his body and revolved around him like golden lightning. Void Riddle. Ji Yuzhong growled and his eyes turned extremely sharp. He directly used the 9th secret of the immortal path, the nihility. A hazy immortal light radiated from his body. The immortal light was inconspicuous and seemed very ordinary, but at that moment, the charging generals on the chariots all disappeared into thin air along with their chariots. Anything that was enveloped by the misty immortal light, whether it was a general or a chariot, was instantly reduced to nothingness. Ji Yuzhong charged forward, his entire body radiating hazy immortal light. The 1,000 war chariots that were charging towards him were all vaporized by the power of the secret art of nothingness that spread from his body. Even Ji Yuzhong was stunned by the power displayed by the secret word Wu. Just as Ji Yuzhong was cultivating in the stone chamber, the atmosphere in the East Imperial City became incomparably oppressive. Someone saw the experts of the Dongfang family appearing outside the East Imperial City. Some even saw Dong Huang's figure. Of course, these were all rumors. No one knew if they were true or false. The Dongfang family had produced Dong Huang. Of course, this Dong Huang wasn't the invincible human emperor of the ancient times, Dong Huang. Dong Huang was very mysterious and never showed his true face. It was as if he was always wearing a bronze mask. There was no doubt that Dong Huang was strong because he had already become a sage. In the East Imperial City, there was no one from his generation who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Perhaps only the goddess of the primordial Zhao family was qualified to be Dong Huang's opponent. After the Dongfang family appeared, some people also saw the experts of the primordial Zhao family appearing outside the East Imperial City. They seemed to be spying on Ji Yufei and his disciple in the city. At this time, only Ji Yufei and Ji Yuzhong lived in the huge city governor's mansion of East Royal City. Due to the fear of Ji Yufei's reputation, the cultivators of the various cultivation families in the East Imperial City didn't dare to get too close to the city lord's residence. It should be noted that Ji Yufei's reputation had been earned through fighting. Who would dare to provoke such a fierce person? Ever since the Dongfang family and the primordial Zhao family appeared in the vicinity of the East Imperial City, the cultivators in the East Imperial City were anxious. The atmosphere in the East Imperial City was extremely tense. A storm is brewing. It seems that this feud will be difficult to resolve. On a mountain peak outside the East Imperial City, An old man muttered to himself as he looked at the East Imperial City. This battle is inevitable. The problem is that no one knows when it will break out. The older generation of cultivators in the East Imperial City were discussing. They more or less knew about the feud between Ji Yufei and the Dongfang family. However, the younger cultivators were extremely excited. They couldn't wait for the battle to break out. Another peaceful and depressing day passed, and night fell. In a valley outside of the East Royal City, there was a stone table, and around it sat 3 people. Dragon servant, my cousin has really come to the East Imperial City. Beside the stone table, a young man waving a folding fan suddenly said to an old servant in green behind him. It should be true. The old servant in green said. Haha, there's going to be a good show this time. Opposite the young man sat a tall and skinny middle-aged man. What kind of show? Another young man in embroidered robes glanced at the middle-aged man doubtfully. The Zhao clan's goddess is extremely stunning and is one of the strongest young talents in the Zhao clan. However, if she were to meet Ji Yufei, who would win? The tall and skinny middle-aged man glanced at the two and said, My cousin is indeed powerful. The young man waving the folding fan said expressionlessly. He had to admit that although they were cousins, they were also competitors. I really want to know what will happen when the two of them meet. The young man in embroidered robes said. You will find out soon. The young man waving the folding fan said. Just as the 3 powerful cultivators in the valley were guessing who was stronger between the Zhao clan's goddess and Ji Yufei, in another direction, on a mountain peak, stood a silhouette. It was a slender silhouette wearing clothes whiter than snow. When the mountain wind blew, her fine black hair danced in the wind. It was an otherworldly lady. However, this woman was wearing a sinister bronze mask on her face. Ji Yufei, you're finally back. A voice that was like the sound of nature rang out. Behind the bronze mask, a pair of sharp eyes shot out and a strong desire to fight spread out from the lady's body. In the next moment, a cool breeze blew past the mountain peak and the silhouette disappeared without a trace. It was as if she had disappeared into thin air. Ji Yufei's return was not a secret. The great sects and clans in the Tinglong continent already knew about it. Ji Yufei, in the southern wasteland, in the ancestral land of the Azure Dragon clan, a young man who was sitting cross-legged on a boulder suddenly opened his eyes. 2 incomparably sharp divine lights rushed out from his eyes, like 2 lightning bolts, instantly illuminating the dark world. On a spiritual mountain in the Buddhist country of the West, an old monk who no longer cared about worldly affairs came out from his cultivation place and chanted a supreme Buddhist mantra. That evil person actually came back alive. The old monk shook his head helplessly and left the spiritual mountain, disappearing from the world. Nobody knew where he went. The Buddhist country of the West and Ji Yufei had a deep grudge. Ji Yufei once overturned half of the spiritual mountain, causing the Buddhist country of the West to suffer great losses. It almost shook the foundation of the Buddhist country of the West. In the eastern royal city of the Eastern Domain, Ji Yufei sensed many powerful cultivators around the eastern royal city. Moreover, there were more and more of them. He didn't know if there were any of his enemies among them. In the Tinglong continent, Ji Yufei definitely had a lot of enemies. On a dark and windy night, a black silhouette silently entered the eastern royal city's governor's mansion. As soon as the black silhouette entered the mansion, a silhouette came out from the side and blocked his way. A guy who hides his head but shows his tail. That person looked at the black-clothed man with an incomparably sharp gaze, as if he wanted to see through him. Ji Yuzhong. After the black-clothed man saw the person's appearance, he couldn't help but be shocked. He had just entered the mansion, but the other party had already noticed him. Swish. At this moment, Ji Yuzhong had already made his move. He took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of the black-clothed man. His right hand was like a hook, directly grabbing towards the face of the black-clothed man, wanting to take away his mask. The black-clothed man's feet moved, and he retreated to avoid the attack. Ji Yuzhong's 5 fingers grabbed onto nothing but air. However, he immediately charged forward like a shadow and threw a punch at the black-clothed man's chest. The powerful force of the punch instantly exploded and sent the black-clothed man flying. How is this possible? The black-clothed man was extremely shocked. Not to mention Ji Yufei, he wasn't even a match for Ji Yufei's disciple. This was the gap between them. Although the black-clothed man was unwilling to accept this reality, the reality was the reality. Nobody could change this outcome. The black-clothed man knew that he couldn't do anything, so he decisively turned around and fled. However, it was too late. Ji Yuzhong had already used the 8 desolate steps and used the extreme speed of 8 steps to catch up. A misty immortal light spread out from Ji Yuzhong's body and instantly enveloped the black-clothed man who was running away. Roar! Immediately, the black-clothed man let out a miserable howl. Rays of divine light rushed out from his body and directly disappeared in the void. The black-clothed man felt that his strength was rapidly fading. How could this be? At this moment, the black-clothed man was scared out of his wits. Don't kill me. The black-clothed man hurriedly begged. HMPH. Chapter 2543. In the face of provocation, one must fiercely fight back. No matter who this black-clothed man was, he dared to barge into the East Royal City, so he was the enemy of Ji Yufei and Ji Yuzhong. Rumble, the golden hand pressed down from the sky, causing the void to tremble. The dazzling golden light lit up the dark night sky. Everyone in the East Imperial City was alarmed. Without any suspense, the black-clothed man was directly smashed into a bloody mist by Ji Yuzhong's heaven-covering palm. Both his body and soul were destroyed. Courting death. Ji Yuzhong left these words behind and returned to the governor's mansion. The cultivators who saw this scene couldn't help but be shocked. Ji Yuzhong's method was too powerful. A powerful cultivator was killed just like that. Of course, many people knew that Ji Yuzhong killed the black-clothed man to deter those who were tempted to cause trouble in the East Imperial City. After all, the East Imperial City was the Dongfang family's base camp in the Eastern Domain. It had been in operation for countless years. The cultivation clans in the city were more or less related to the Dongfang family. Many of the cultivation clans in the East Imperial City were definitely loyal to the Dongfang family. They would do anything for the Dongfang family. However, even Ji Yuzhong himself wasn't sure if the strength that Ji Yuzhong displayed could deter these people. After Ji Yuzhong killed the black-clothed man, no one dared to have any ideas about the East Imperial City. At this time, Ji Yufei and his disciple were breaking the formation. The East Imperial City was one of the Dongfang family's bases. It had been managed by the Dongfang family for countless years. There were many forbidden areas in the governor's mansion. In front of a pavilion in the depths of the governor's mansion, Ji Yufei and Ji Yuzhong were carefully inspecting the surrounding power of the heavens and earth. It was a pavilion that was sealed. In fact, this pavilion was the famous treasure pavilion in the East Imperial City. It was the place where the Dongfang family stored their divine materials. Before Dongfang Zun was chased away by Ji Yufei, he activated the protective formation of the treasure pavilion and sealed the entire pavilion to prevent the divine materials from falling into Ji Yufei's hands. In the East Imperial City, no one dared to have any ideas about the treasure pavilion. However, it was different now. The current owner of the governor's mansion wasn't Dongfang Zun. Ji Yufei couldn't care less about the forbidden areas. This treasure vault was simply a divine treasury. How could he possibly miss out on such an item? Master, this is a saint-ranked formation. It won't be easy to break this formation, Ji Yuzhong said to Ji Yufei. After checking the surroundings of the treasure house, Ji Yuzhong came to this conclusion. What a pity. If I had the extreme Dao Saint weapon with me, I would be able to break through any holy formation. Ji Yufei sighed. He was being too careful. The extreme Dao sacred artifacts were all on his main body, but this indestructible war body did not have any magic artifacts. Ji Yufei sighed. He was too careful. The saint body was carrying the saint body, but the indestructible battle physique didn't have any saint weapon. The extreme saint weapon was too important, so Ji Yufei could not risk it. If anything happened to the indestructible combat physique, the extreme saint weapon would be lost. The saint weapon was too important. Ji Yufei couldn't risk it. If the indestructible battle physique were to encounter any mishaps, the saint weapon would be gone. Master, It looks like we can only slowly break through this treasure vault. Jiyu Zhong said after pondering for a long time. That's the only way. Jiyu Fei nodded. Although this method was time-consuming, it was the safest. Every floor of the treasure pavilion was shrouded in divine light and immortal qi. Every floor contained a large amount of divine materials. Moreover, these divine materials didn't belong to a single person. They belonged to the entire Dongfang family. Therefore, even Dongfang Zun, who was extremely important in the Dongfang family, couldn't use them. What happened next was easy. Jiyu Fei and Jiyu Zhong worked together to set up a great formation outside the treasure pavilion. Then, they used the power of the formation to wear down the treasure pavilion's defensive formation. Throughout the latter half of the night, divine light shone out from the depths of the governor's mansion. The power of the heaven and earth was changing. Essence Qi began to gather towards the governor's mansion. What's going on? What are those two malefactors doing? All the cultivators in the East Royal City were bewildered. They could sense powerful energy fluctuations coming from the city lord's mansion. No one knew what Jiyu Fei and his disciple were doing in the governor's mansion. The next day, when the sky was just getting brighter, there were no more energy fluctuations coming from the governor's mansion. However, all the cultivators could sense that the entire heaven and earth seemed to have changed. Someone changed the power of the heaven and earth. Some of the older cultivators said such words. All the cultivators were shocked. Changing the power of the heaven and earth was extremely shocking, especially in the East Royal City. This kind of speculation was discussed in a small circle. After all, the mortals in the East Royal City couldn't sense anything. They were still living in peace. Damn it, those two master and disciple must be eyeing those places. In a quiet valley 1,000 miles away from the East Royal City, a furious roar was heard. Father, even though they're powerful, we can't lose our footing. A voice that sounded like the sounds of nature rang out. The valley was like a fairyland. Mist and multicolored light were faintly discernible. There were birdsong and fragrant flowers everywhere. Mountain springs dotted the place, and pavilions could be faintly seen in the forest. Those people are cowards. They don't dare to use ancestral treasures. Next to a spirit spring, in a pavilion, two people were talking. It was a man and a woman. The man was a handsome young man, and the woman was dressed in white clothes. She was an unbelievably beautiful fairy. They weren't a couple, but a father and a daughter. Father, don't blame them. I heard that this Jiyu Fei has a sacred weapon. Even if we use ancestral treasures, we might not be able to kill him. The lady in white said. The young man was Dongfang Zun, who was beaten by Jiyu Fei. The lady in white was Dongfang Zun's daughter, Dongfang Yarrow, who had joined the archaic Dao Gate. At this moment, Dongfang Zun was furious. Losing to Jiyu Fei was a great humiliation to him. He wanted to take back the East Royal City from Jiyu Fei, but the clan didn't allow him to use ancestral treasures. To Dongfang Zun, only by using ancestral treasures could he have a chance to kill the enemy of the Dongfang clan. However, the higher-ups of the Dongfang clan were worried. One should know that ancestral treasures were very important and couldn't be used easily. If they lost them, the Dongfang clan would be in big trouble. Those guys are so disappointing. Dongfang Zun was furious. Father, actually, using ancestral treasures isn't the only way to deal with Jiyu Fei. Chapter 2544. In the valley, Dongfang Zun and his daughter were discussing how to deal with Jiyu Fei and his disciple. If he couldn't do it openly, then he would do it in the dark. One of Dongfang Yarrow's senior brothers was about to come to the eastern region to travel, which gave Dongfang Yarrow a chance to resist Jiyu Fei and his disciple. Furthermore, the only son of the primordial era's Zhao clan had a special liking for Dongfang Yarrow and had never given up on the idea of marrying her. In Dongfang Yarrow's opinion, these were all resources that could be used. For several days in a row, the various forces seemed to be very restrained. Even the terrifying devils in the Devil's Den had quietened down these few days. The death of the blood-winged demon's son infuriated the winged demons. However, they knew how powerful Jiyu Fei and his disciple were. Therefore, they were unwilling to make a move. On the other hand, The Zhao clan of the ancients continued to observe. They did not make it clear that they were in an alliance with the Dongfang clan. One should know that the Zhao clan of the ancients had paid a heavy price to resolve their grudge with Ji Yufei. The Zhao family of the ancients did not want to fight with Ji Yufei again, as it was not in their interest. For the Zhao clan of the primordial, the benefits of the clan were more important than the alliance between the Zhao clan and the Dongfang clan. The Zhao clan of the primordial would not offend Ji Yufei for the Dongfang clan. Surprisingly, the Dongfang family did not react at all. They did not immediately seek revenge on Ji Yufei and his disciple, nor did they make any moves to recapture the eastern imperial city. The Dongfang family's reaction made it hard for anyone to guess what was going on. Just when all the forces thought that the Dongfang family was going to be a coward, Dongfang Zun suddenly appeared outside the East Royal City at dusk. Shua. A figure appeared in front of Dongfang Zun and looked at him coldly. You are Dongfang Zun. It was Ji Yuzhong. He happened to be patrolling nearby, so he came here immediately and stopped Dongfang Zun, who was about to enter the East Royal City. Humph. Dongfang Zun snorted coldly and turned around to leave. With a single step, he was already 100 miles away. His speed was extremely fast. Where do you think you're going? When Ji Yuzhong saw that Dongfang Zun was about to escape, he quickly chased after him. Using the 8 desolate steps, Yi Futian moved quickly in the air. The distance between the two of them was rapidly shrinking. The speed of the two was extremely fast, and they soon rushed into the mountains thousands of miles away. Then, Dongfang Zun stopped running and stopped in the depths of the mountains. Boom! The heavens and earth shook as the two great experts fought. Unimaginably powerful energy fluctuations erupted from the depths of the mountain, causing the entire mountain ridge to shake. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Dongfang Zun said coldly as he attacked Ji Yuzhong. You lured me here. Did you do something to this place? At this moment, how could Ji Yuzhong not understand that there was only a single reason why the other party had appeared outside the East Emperor City, and that was to draw him here? Haha, you guessed it right. Today is the day you die. Dongfang Zun laughed. At this moment, a figure appeared in the distant sky. It was a figure sitting cross-legged on an array platform. It was a goddess in white. On the platform, a series of runes appeared indistinctly. Raise the array. The goddess sitting cross-legged on the platform let out a loud cry, then directly activated the platform. Rumble, the earth shook. 10 stone pillars broke out from the ground and rushed out. They were 10 stone pillars that were covered with mysterious and ancient runes. The 10 stone pillars quickly rose from the ground into the sky, enveloping an area of several hundred kilometers. This is, while Ji Yuzhong was fighting with Dongfang Zun, he was secretly shocked. This Dongfang Zun had really dug a big hole for me to jump into. It was not an easy thing to set up a great array that covered hundreds of miles. It seemed that this Dongfang Zun had set up an ambush here. Haha, I'll kill you first, then I'll kill your master. Dongfang Zun was overjoyed and excited. This great array was one of the ancestral arrays of the Dongfang family. It was called the 10 Slaughtering Array, and it was a saint-level slaughtering array. At this moment, runes appeared on Dongfang Zun's body. An extremely powerful force burst out from his body. Bam! Dongfang Zun directly pushed Ji Yuzhong back with a palm strike. Then, he sat cross-legged in the void and used all his strength to activate the power of the 10 killing formation. Countless runes rushed out of the 10 stone pillars and a layer of light curtain enveloped the space of hundreds of miles around the 10 stone pillars. The entire mountain changed its color, and the sun and moon lost their radiance. Ji Yuzhong was shocked. At this moment, the 10 slaughtering array had already been activated. The terrifying power kept increasing, and the essence of the universe was gathering. You want to kill me with this slaughtering array? You're too naive. Ji Yuzhong calmed down and looked around. The 10 slaughtering array had sealed the void, and there seemed to be no flaw in it. Bam! Ji Yuzhong used the heaven-covering palm to test the waters. A huge golden hand immediately appeared in the void and slapped towards a stone pillar in front of him. Rumble, space trembled. Ji Yuzhong's heaven-covering hand had displayed a great might and had actually managed to shake the light barrier that sealed the world. However, when the large hand slammed against the stone pillar, it was unable to shake the stone pillar. The stone pillar emitted a powerful energy fluctuation, directly shattering Ji Yuzhong's heaven-covering palm. Ji Yuzhong's heart skipped a beat when he saw this scene. "All right, let me send you on your way." At this moment, Dongfang Zun had already guided the power of the 10 slaughtering array into his body. He was the master of the 10 slaughtering array. Every move he made contained great power. Boom! Dongfang Zun raised his hand, and a dazzling lightning shot out from his hand towards Ji Yuzhong. Ji Yuzhong waved his hand and shattered the lightning. He then used the golden element fist and took a step forward, sending a punch towards Dongfang Zun's chest. Dongfang Zun stretched out his hand to meet Ji Yuzhong's fist. Bam! With a muffled sound, Ji Yuzhong's fist collided with Dongfang Zun's hand. Two powerful forces clashed, and a destructive storm swept out. Sand and stones flew in the 10 slaughtering array. At this moment, Ji Yuzhong felt an unstoppable force erupting from Dongfang Zun's palm, sending him flying. How is this possible? Chapter 2545. The 10 slaughtering formation displayed its great power. 10 stone pillars sealed off all directions, trapping Ji Yuzhong in the formation. Rumble, the heaven and earth shook. An endless amount of worldly essence gathered towards the 10 slaughtering formation. At this moment, Dongfang Zun, who was in the 10 slaughtering formation, seemed to have turned into an invincible god of war. With a wave of his hand, he sent Ji Yuzhong flying away. "I have the power of the 10 slaughtering formation. What makes you think you can fight against me?" Dongfang Zun shouted. He then took a step forward and approached Ji Yuzhong in an instant. He reached out his hand and pressed towards Ji Yuzhong. The entire space collapsed under his hand. The space was collapsing and turned into a destructive force that rushed towards Ji Yuzhong. Roar! Ji Yuzhong felt a great pressure. He roared and his long hair fluttered in the wind. He then punched towards Dongfang Zun's hand with all his might. An extremely powerful fist energy exploded on his fist. The power of metal surged violently in Ji Yuzhong's body. 9 golden runes appeared on his body, emitting an endless amount of daoist rhymes. On his fist, there was a dazzling golden light, as if it had turned into a golden sun. It emitted an endless amount of golden light and rose from the ground. Rumble, 2 extremely powerful forces clashed. The giant hand that Dongfang Zun had conjured enveloped the heaven and earth, sealing the space and drawing upon the power of the 10 slaughtering formation. It displayed a terrifying might that could destroy the heaven and earth. Preposterous! How could he be this strong? Ji Yuzhong could not help but be shocked. The power of the 10 slaughtering formation was far too powerful. He was extremely shocked. His invincible fist energy could not even break through the giant hand. His golden fist broke through the layers of power that came crashing down from his opponent's hand and collided with it. Bzzz. The moment the two forces clashed, the entire heaven and earth rumbled. Then, a pitch-black crack appeared in the sky. Dazzling lightning bolts shot out from the 10 stone pillars and entered Dongfang Zun's body. Immediately, Dongfang Zun's body began to radiate with dazzling lightning. "I'll strike you with 5 thunders." Dongfang Zun's hand shook and an endless amount of 5-colored lightning shot out from his hand. It emitted a terrifying aura of destruction and shot towards Ji Yuzhong. 5-element divine lightning. Ji Yuzhong's expression changed when he saw this. This fellow had the power of the gravitational killing formation. He was probably invincible here. Damn it. Boom. A deafening clap of thunder resounded as the 5-colored lightning struck Ji Yuzhong's fist, shattering his fist force. Then, the 5-colored lightning engulfed Ji Yuzhong in an instant. A ball of colorful lightning fell from the sky. Boom. With a loud bang, the ground exploded. The 5-colored lightning directly smashed a large pit in the ground. Within the pit, there were streaks of 5-colored lightning wreaking havoc. At this moment, Ji Yuzhong was struck by the 5 elements divine lightning to the point that his entire body was twitching. His hair was standing on end, and he was in an extremely sorry state. Clang! Before Ji Yuzhong could return to his senses, golden blades of light immediately fell from the sky. Each blade of light emitted a powerful ripple of power that cut through the void. Rumble, the earth trembled, and countless golden light blades fell like rain into the huge pit on the ground, completely submerging Ji Yuzhong. Dust rose high into the sky. Die. Up in the sky, Dongfang Zun waved both of his hands. Golden light blades and five-colored lightning continuously bombarded the huge pit on the ground. Under the impact of the powerful energy, the entire ground undulated like waves. The terrifying power of destruction destroyed everything. He should be dead. Dongfang Zun only stopped after a long while of frenzied attacks. He said while panting heavily. He stared at the dusty crater with a smile on his face. He could no longer sense the aura of Ji Yuzhong in the pit. He really killed Ji Yuzhong. Outside the 10 slaughtering formation, Dongfang Yarrow, who was sitting cross-legged on the platform, looked at the scene in shock. She could not believe that a powerful martial saint had died. What invincible? Just SOSO. Dongfang Zun said coldly. Haha, Ji Yuzhong is dead. Ji Yufei is going to go crazy this time. Outside the 10 slaughtering formation, Dongfang Yarrow was pleasantly surprised. Ji Yuzhong was a martial saint, the left and right hand of Ji Yufei. Killing Ji Yuzhong was equivalent to cutting off one of Ji Yufei's arms. However, at this moment, Dongfang Zun's expression suddenly changed. In the next moment, he felt his body tighten. He was being hugged tightly from behind. What? Dongfang Zun's shock was not small at all. Do you think you can kill me with this level of attack? A voice rang in Dongfang Zun's ears. Roar. Dongfang Zun struggled with all his might, trying to break free from the other party's embrace. However, the other party's arms and legs were tightly wrapped around his body. He could not break free at all. How is this possible? Outside the 10 slaughtering formation, Dongfang Yarrow was stunned by the scene in front of her. She saw that Ji Yuzhong had suddenly appeared behind her father without a sound and hugged him. Kill. Ji Yuzhong roared and the power of his martial body exploded. This was not a saint-class technique or divine ability. It was purely the power of his martial body and did not involve any saint-class Dao law. However, even if the power of his martial body did not involve any saint-class Dao law, its strength was definitely not weaker than the power of a saint-class Dao law. Immediately, the sound of bones breaking could be heard from Dongfang Zun's body. With the power of Ji Yuzhong's martial body, Dongfang Zun did not know how many of his bones were broken. Even though he was an ancient sage, Dongfang Zun almost fainted from the pain. His broken ribs pierced into his internal organs as he vomited blood. Slash. Dongfang Zun roared furiously. A resplendent celestial light shone from the center of his brows, drawing upon the power of the 10 extremities. The 10 stone pillars trembled at the same time. Then, a heavenly blade appeared on each of the stone pillars, slashing towards Ji Yuzhong who was on his back. The heavenly sabers formed by the power of the stone pillars emitted a terrifying energy fluctuation, as though a true peerless divine saber had appeared between the heavens and earth. Swoosh. The 10 heavenly sabers slashed towards Ji Yuzhong at the same time. The terrifying power of destruction directly split the void between the heavens and earth. Let me show you what the indestructible golden body is. Ji Yuzhong roared. His entire body emitted a dazzling golden radiance. 9 golden Dao patterns emerged on his body as the power of his martial body was completely stimulated. Boom. The void trembled. At the same time, Ji Yuzhong also performed the secret technique of ascension, pushing the power of his martial body to the limit. His entire being was like a god of war burning with golden divine flames. Bang! As soon as Ji Yuzhong exerted his strength, the body of Dongfang Zun that he was hugging immediately exploded. A ball of divine light wrapped around a primordial spirit that soared into the sky. Dongfang Zun's body was actually crushed by Ji Yuzhong's grip, turning into a bloody mist. At the same time, the 10 heavenly sabers slashed towards Ji Yuzhong's body. The edge of the saber broke through Ji Yuzhong's protective golden light and slashed into his body. Roar! Ji Yuzhong roared angrily. His body shook and the 10 heavenly sabers that slashed into his body were forced out by him. Then, the sabers shattered in the void. The places that were slashed by the 10 heavenly sabers oozed golden blood. The wounds could not be healed in a short period of time. Saber chi that contains the killing intent of the Great Path. Ji Yuzhong looked at the wounds on his body and his pupils constricted. At this moment, Dongfang Zun's primordial spirit had already fled far away. Having lost his physical body, it was difficult for him to activate the power of the 10 absolutes. This made him both shocked and angry. One should know that even as an ancient saint, his primordial spirit would probably dissipate before he could kill Ji Yuzhong if he activated the power of the 10 absolutes when he was only left with his primordial spirit. Yarrow, come and kill this guy for me. Dongfang Zun's primordial spirit said to Dongfang Yarrow, who was outside the 10 killings formation. Yes, father. Dongfang Yarrow activated the formation platform under her feet. A ball of divine light immediately wrapped around Dongfang Zun's primordial spirit and moved it out of the 10 killings formation. Ji Yuzhong wanted to take action, but it was too late. At this moment, the formation platform under Dongfang Yarrow's feet broke through the void and entered the 10 killings formation. You are Dongfang Yarrow? Ji Yuzhong asked coldly, staring at the goddess who had entered the 10 killings formation. Dongfang Yarrow stood on the formation platform, her white robe fluttering in the wind. She gave off an otherworldly feeling. Coupled with her peerless beauty, she was indeed eye-catching. However, this was nothing to Ji Yuzhong. One should know that his wife was the previous saintess of the Yarrowtai ancient sacred ground. The saintess of the Yarrowtai ancient sacred ground was definitely not inferior to Dongfang Yarrow. In some aspects, the saintess of the Yarrowtai ancient sacred ground was even better than Dongfang Yarrow. Ji Yuzhong, don't even think about leaving here alive today. Dongfang Yarrow looked at Ji Yuzhong and said calmly, as if victory was already in her grasp. Many people want to kill me, but I am still alive. Those who want to kill me are all dead, Ji Yuzhong said disapprovingly. Ji Yuzhong said disapprovingly. He was very confident in his cultivation and combat strength. Although Dongfang Yarrow was strong, he wasn't someone to be trifled with. There's no point in talking anymore. Let's use facts to prove it. Dongfang Yarrow was very direct. She sat down on the platform, and runes began to appear on it. Rumble. The entire space sealed by the 10 stone pillars trembled. Dongfang Yarrow had actually activated the power of the entire 10 killings formation in an instant, which surprised Ji Yuzhong. I see. Ji Yuzhong stared at the formation platform under Dongfang Yarrow. He could sense a pulse of energy from the platform that came from the same source as the 10 killings formation. He couldn't help but admire Dongfang Zun and his daughter's cautiousness. They had actually prepared something like this. Dongfang Zun was a human-shaped formation platform. By imprinting formation runes on him, he could activate the power of the 10 killings formation and multiply his combat ability. Chapter 2546. Dongfang Yarrow controlled the 10 slaughtering matrix and activated the power of the 10 slaughtering matrix. The weather within the 10 slaughtering matrix changed. The sun and moon dimmed as blinding divine light and lightning filled the place. Hundreds of miles of land turned into a killing zone. Spiritual chi from all directions was absorbed into the 10 slaughtering matrix, multiplying the power of the 10 slaughtering matrix. So what? You and your daughter are destined to be defeated by me. Ji Yuzhong's entire body shone with golden light. Like a golden god of war, 9 golden runes appeared on his body, releasing an endless aura of the Great Path. The 10 wounds inflicted by the Heaven's Blade gradually healed. The divine power of the indestructible golden body began to explode, erasing the murderous aura of the Great Path on his wounds. Dongfang Yarrow sat on the matrix platform and sneered without saying anything. At this moment, she activated the 10 ultimate powers of the 10 slaughtering matrix. A gigantic silhouette appeared on her body, as if summoning a terrifying existence. Rumble. The entire 10 slaughtering matrix shook violently. Countless runes appeared on the 10 stone pillars, emitting a murderous aura. 10 terrifying silhouettes appeared on the stone pillars, formed by countless runes. Every silhouette exuded a terrifying murderous aura. It was as if 10 terrifying beasts from the primordial era had descended upon this world. Kill. Feeling the immense pressure, Ji Yuzhong's battle intent surged. His eyes shone with a brilliant golden light as power surged from his body. He took a step forward and threw a punch at Dongfang Yarrow, who was sitting cross-legged on the platform. Boom! After a loud bang, a huge hole appeared in the space before Ji Yuzhong's fist. Chaotic air swirled within the hole and the space around it crumbled. Ji Yuzhong wanted to punch Dongfang Yarrow into the chaotic air to break the 10 slaughtering matrix. One should know that the 10 slaughtering matrix was activated by the matrix platform. Once the matrix platform was destroyed, the 10 slaughtering matrix would collapse on its own. However, the matrix platform was not easy to destroy. BZZ. The array platform shook as 9 immortal runes rushed out from it, blocking the void and blocking Ji Yuzhong's fist energy. This is getting interesting. Ji Yuzhong's eyes flickered. With a jerk of his arm, an even more powerful force erupted from his arm. In his flesh, blood, tendons, and bones, Dao patterns were faintly discernible. Bang! Berserk power erupted from Ji Yuzhong's fist, and the 9 Dao patterns that sealed the space around the formation platform immediately trembled. Dongfang Yarrow, who was sitting cross-legged on the array platform, was shocked to the extreme. Ji Yuzhong's physical body was truly powerful to the extreme. It could actually shake a Saint-tier Dao pattern. One should know that the 10 slaughtering formation was one of the ancestral formations that the Dongfang clan possessed. Even someone like Dongfang Zun, who held a high position in the Dongfang clan, would find it difficult to activate such a formation. Roar! At this moment, a series of roars rang out. The terrifying figures that had appeared on the stone pillars finally rushed out. Ji Yuzhong's expression involuntarily changed when he saw this scene. Every single one of the 10 figures was as large as a small mountain, and every single one of them emitted a terrifying aura. The 10 great ancient ferocious beasts. Ji Yuzhong realized that the 10 figures were not humans, but living beings of different races. Ji Yuzhong threw another punch at the formation platform. This time, the force of his punch increased by a large margin. The 9 Dao patterns trembled violently, showing signs of dissipating. Be careful. This guy's physical body is comparable to a ferocious beast. There's no need for you to fight him head-on. Outside the 10 slaughtering formation, Dongfang Zun's primordial spirit did not leave. He was observing the battle within the 10 slaughtering formation. Seeing that Dongfang Yarrow was in a passive situation, he immediately gave her some advice. Yes, father. Dongfang Yarrow knew that she could not fight Ji Yuzhong head-on. However, Ji Yuzhong had already locked onto the formation platform. It was impossible for her to escape. I'll let you witness the true power of the 10 slaughtering formation. Dongfang Yarrow's eyes turned cold as she activated the formation. Boom! High up in the sky, a furry beast claw swiped at Ji Yuzhong. A frightening murderous aura spread out from the beast claw. Even if the real 10 ferocious beasts were here, I would have nothing to fear, let alone these guys created from the formation. Ji Yuzhong's battle intent was unparalleled. He punched upwards. The extremely powerful fist force directly shattered the gigantic beast claw that was swiping down from the sky. The beast claw was shattered as flesh and blood splattered everywhere. This scene was extremely realistic, as though the claw of an ancient ferocious beast was shattered by Ji Yuzhong. Roar! A terrifying roar rang out, and a huge beast shadow walked out from the endless deathly grey baleful aura. A violent and monstrous aura swept across the sky. Very good. Let me try out a new secret art I've learned. Ji Yuzhong was very confident. He had mastered the 9 secrets of the immortal path. Even if he could not win, he could still retreat easily. Although this 10 slaughtering formation was powerful, it might not be able to trap him. BZZ Ji Yuzhong circulated the 9 secrets of the immortal path. A ball of misty immortal light shone from his body and spread out in all directions. A scene that shocked Dongfang Yarrow appeared. Everything that was enveloped by the ball of celestial light from Ji Yuzhong's body was reduced to nothingness. The 9 Dao patterns that were sealed around the 10 killing formation platform were swept by this ball of immortal light, and instantly dimmed, almost dissolving. How could this be? Dongfang Yarrow was in disbelief. She was shocked to the extreme and hurriedly controlled the formation platform to dodge, escaping from the range of the misty immortal light. At that moment, Ji Yuzhong pounced at the ferocious beast. Roar! The ferocious beast let out a furious roar and swung its huge claw at Ji Yuzhong. The huge beast claw covered an entire area of the void, the powerful force causing pitch-black cracks to appear in the void. However, Ji Yuzhong didn't seem to do anything, but the huge beast claw actually dissipated when it came into contact with the ball of misty celestial light that was spreading out from Ji Yuzhong's body. Countless runes directly dissipated in the void. Where the immortal light reaches, everything in the world turns into nothingness. Outside the 10 slaughtering formation, Dongfang Zun's primordial spirit could not help but turn pale with fright. He recalled a secret art that had shaken the world in ancient times. At this moment, the ferocious beast that was formed from the Tao pattern was already enveloped by the immortal light that was radiating from Ji Yuzhong's body. The incomparably huge ferocious beast actually melted like snow under the immortal light. Chapter 2547. The secret word Wu possessed unfathomable power. The hazy immortal light was not eye-catching, but it could destroy everything, turning everything in the world into nothingness. Dongfang Zun and his daughter were shocked to the extreme when they saw this. I don't believe you can really defy the heavens. Dongfang Yarrow, who was sitting on the platform, said coldly. Her eyes were extremely sharp and her entire body was shrouded in immortal light. She guided the power of the 10 slaughters formation towards the platform. Rumble, rumble, rumble. 9 terrifying figures appeared in this space. They were the 10 great ancient ferocious beasts that had appeared from the 10 killstone pillars. Each of the ferocious beasts emitted a monstrous and terrifying aura, and each of them seemed to be able to crush the entire sky. One of these 10 great ferocious beasts had just been destroyed by Ji Yuzhong's void character, and there were still 9 left. The loss of a ferocious beast caused the 10 slaughter formation to be incomplete, and it was difficult for it to reveal its supreme might. At this moment, Dongfang Yarrow seemed to have become one with the 10 slaughters formation. With a single thought, she could summon the power of the 10 extremes gathered by the 10 slaughters formation. Kill. Dongfang Yarrow did not hesitate and used her killer move right away. The 9 beasts charged towards Ji Yuzhong at the same time. The powerful pressure from the 9 beasts crushed the space between heaven and earth. However, the pressure that was enough to make even saints shudder did not affect Ji Yuzhong at all. Hazy immortal light spread from his body and all the waves of power that came towards him were immediately dissolved. The power of the secret word Wu was displayed at this moment. With Ji Yuzhong at the center, the place that the immortal light enveloped was like a bottomless black hole that seemed to be devouring everything in the world. In reality, this was not devouring, it was being turned into nothingness. Roar! A beast with wings on its back reached out its sharp claws and clawed at Ji Yuzhong. The power of the great Tao exploded and on its claws, there were runes faintly visible. The waves of power that emanated from it were extremely powerful. Ji Yuzhong sneered and pounced forward. Misty immortal light spread out. The winged ferocious beast actually didn't have any misgivings. Its sharp claws directly clawed at the ball of celestial light around Ji Yuzhong. After that, an unbelievable scene appeared. The fierce beast's sharp claws quickly became blurry, and the Tao patterns that emerged from the claws dissipated in the void, being obliterated by the power of the secret word Wu. The ferocious beast roared and retreated in an instant. Even though it managed to retreat in time, one of the winged beast's arms was forcefully melted away, turning it into a one-armed beast. All right, it's time to end this, Ji Yuzhong said. He didn't want to continue playing. Boom. In the next moment, a ball of celestial light erupted from his body, and then it spread in all directions, instantly enveloping the entire world. What? Dongfang Zun and his daughter were extremely shocked. Under the celestial light, the 9 terrifying figures were actually dissipating. Countless Tao patterns were being destroyed by the celestial light. The 10 killing array was collapsing, and the array patterns that were imprinted in the void were also being regenerated by the power of the secret word none. Let's go. Dongfang Yarrow directly controlled the platform and shattered the void. She escaped into the chaos and disappeared in an instant. Dongfang Zun's primordial spirit outside the 10 killing array also turned into a ray of divine light and soared into the sky, wanting to escape. The 10-killing array was collapsing. They had lost. They couldn't even defeat Ji Yufei's disciple, yet they still wanted to trap and kill Ji Yufei. At this moment, Dongfang Zun felt that he was too naive. Preposterous. Seeing this, Ji Yuzhong couldn't help but be furious. The father and daughter were too cunning. Seeing that the situation wasn't right, they immediately fled. At this moment, Ji Yuzhong was in the middle of the collapsing 10-killing array, so he couldn't stop the father and daughter in time. He could only watch the father and daughter escape. However, just when Ji Yuzhong was in a state of shock and anger, a huge hand suddenly appeared in the sky. The huge hand directly grabbed the divine light formed by Dongfang Zun's primordial spirit. Then, a silhouette appeared in the void. This person's right hand was holding a ball of divine light. Within the ball of divine light, there was a tiny silhouette faintly discernible. Ji Yufei! Dongfang Zun exclaimed. The person who suddenly appeared and captured him was his archenemy, the current city lord of the Eastern Royal City, Ji Yufei. Master is here. At this moment, Ji Yuzhong had already rushed out from the collapsing 10-killing array. Seeing that person capturing Dongfang Zun's primordial spirit, he couldn't help but be surprised and overjoyed. Ji Yufei was here. This made Dongfang Zun feel despair. He knew that he would die for sure after falling into Ji Yufei's hands. The Dongfang clan and Ji Yufei had a huge grudge. This was something that all the cultivators in the Eastern Domain knew about. The older cultivators all knew about the grudge between the Dongfang clan and Ji Yufei. What? You're not going to beg for mercy? Maybe I'll let you go if I'm in a good mood. Ji Yufei looked at the silhouette in the ball of divine light in his hand and smiled. Dongfang Zun was an important figure in the Dongfang clan. Killing such a figure would definitely cause great damage to the Dongfang clan. Kill me if you want. Dongfang Zun's primordial spirit stared at Ji Yufei and said coldly. He knew very well that even if he begged for mercy from Ji Yufei would never let him go. He would only be humiliating himself. You're a sensible person. There was a smile on Ji Yufei's face before he crushed Dongfang Zun's soul. The city lords of the Eastern Royal City seemed to be very unlucky. They all died in the hands of Ji Yufei. The previous city lord of the Eastern Royal City, Dongfang Yuan, died in the hands of Ji Yufei. And now, Dongfang Zun died in the hands of Ji Yufei. Master, at this moment, Ji Yuzhong came over. Let's go back. Ji Yufei turned around and walked towards the direction of the Eastern Royal City. Ji Yuzhong quickly followed after him. In the ancestral grounds of the Dongfang family, a formation platform suddenly lit up. Lines of formation runes appeared on the platform. Swoosh! A figure fell from the sky and landed on the platform. Father, the person who fell out of the void was Dongfang Yarrow. At this moment, a spiritual jade that Dongfang Zun had personally refined for her had shattered. This made Dongfang Yarrow turn pale with fright. Because this spiritual jade would only shatter when her father, Dongfang Zun, died. Now that the spiritual jade had shattered, it could only mean one thing. Her father was dead. Chapter 2548. Dongfang Zun was dead. He was an ancient saint, an important figure in the Dongfang family, but he was killed by the master-disciple killing formation. The news spread and shook the entire cultivation world of the Eastern Domain. All the cultivators couldn't believe it. One should know that Dongfang Zun was an incomparably powerful ancient saint. However, regardless of whether they believed it or not, the cultivators of the Eastern Domain were sure that Dongfang Zun was really dead. Roar. When the news reached the ancestral ground of the Dongfang family, an old roar immediately came from the depths of the ancestral ground. Ji Yufei, my Dongfang family and you are irreconcilable. The roar of the current patriarch of the Dongfang family came from a palace in the ancestral ground of the Dongfang family. The death of Dongfang Zun was an irreparable loss for the entire Dongfang family. One should know that there were only so many ancient saints in the entire human realm. The death of one meant that there would be one less. The Dongfang family had no more than 3 ancient saints. Now that Dongfang Zun was dead, the Dongfang family might still have 1 or 2 ancient saints left. The loss this time was too great. Ask for the ancestral weapon to kill the master-disciple duo. Such a voice came from the Dongfang family. That's right, ask for the ancestral weapon to kill the two of them. Some people in the Dongfang family agreed with this suggestion because only by asking for the ancestral weapon would they have a chance to kill Ji Yufei and his disciple. Otherwise, they wouldn't have any chance to get rid of them. However, some people in the Dongfang family were against it because they knew that Ji Yufei had an extreme saint weapon. Even if they asked for the ancestral weapon, they still wouldn't be able to kill Ji Yufei. The higher-ups of the Dongfang family couldn't reach a consensus. They couldn't come to a conclusion on whether they should get rid of the ancestral weapon or not. At this time, Ji Yufei and his disciple were working hard to break the formation. They would never leave the divine treasures in the treasure vault to the Dongfang family. There were many good things in the eastern royal city's lord's mansion. Ji Yufei and his disciple wouldn't let go of these things. The treasure vault was the first step of their plan to empty the lord's mansion. Ji Yufei and his disciple wanted to empty the lord's mansion. Rumble, the void was trembling, millions of divine lights were circulating, and countless runes were faintly discernible. After Ji Yufei returned to the East Royal Kingdom, he immediately went to the treasure depository tower to activate the formation to destroy the tower's protective formation. This was a confrontation between the two grand arrays. The grand array laid down by Ji Yufei sealed off all connections between the tower-protecting grand array and the outside world, making it difficult for the tower-protecting grand array to absorb heaven and earth spiritual energy from the outside world. Without the replenishment of heaven and earth spiritual energy from the outside world, the tower-protecting grand formation's power was decreasing with each use. If this continued, they would indeed be able to break the tower-protecting grand formation. The protective formation was very strong. Even if Ji Yufei used one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, the word none, it would still be very difficult to destroy the runes that formed the formation. This formation was probably not set up by an ordinary sage. After all, the fact that it could withstand the power of the secret word Wu was enough to show how powerful this formation was. When Ji Yufei used all his strength to activate the formation to destroy the tower-protecting grand formation, many mysterious figures appeared outside the East Royal Kingdom. Some people even saw the disciples of the West Earth Buddhism sect outside the East Royal Kingdom. The news of Ji Yufei's return made some of the great sects in the Tenglong continent restless, especially the West Earth Buddhism sect. The grudge between the West Earth Buddhism sect and Ji Yufei was difficult to resolve. In fact, when Ji Yufei took over the East Royal Kingdom, many big shots began to come to the East Royal Kingdom. However, these people were very good at hiding. No one knew how many experts came to the East Royal Kingdom, but it was certain that a storm was brewing in the entire East Royal Kingdom. Now, only one fuse was needed for this storm to explode. The West Earth Buddhism sect, after receiving the news, Ji Yuzhong immediately left the East Royal Kingdom. For several days, Ji Yuzhong had been roaming around the East Imperial City, trying to find the disciples of West Earth's Buddhist sect. However, he had searched everywhere in the vicinity of the East Imperial City, but he couldn't even find the shadow of a single Buddhist sect disciple. Cunning bastard, early in the morning, a figure stood on a mountain peak outside the East Royal Kingdom. This person was Ji Yuzhong. After searching for several days, he still couldn't find the bald head of the West Earth Buddhism sect. Ji Yuzhong was a little disappointed. When he was about to return to the East Royal Kingdom, a figure suddenly appeared on the mountain peak. "It's you." When Ji Yuzhong saw the person, he couldn't help but be startled. This person was actually Dongfang Yarrow. "You dare to come here? Aren't you afraid that I will kill you?" Ji Yuzhong looked at Dongfang Yarrow expressionlessly. "Me. It's not you who will kill me. This time, it's me who will kill you," Dongfang Yarrow said while gritting her teeth. Her father died in the hands of this master and disciple. This kind of hatred was absolutely irreconcilable. Even if she had to use any means, she would kill this master and disciple. "Is that so? Then let the truth speak for itself," Ji Yuzhong said and directly attacked. He stretched out his hand and grabbed towards Dongfang Yarrow. A powerful force burst out from his hand and his 5 fingers sealed the void. "Die!" Dongfang Yarrow's white robes fluttered in the wind. She roared, and immediately, a beam of immortal light rushed out from her body, turning into an immortal sword of the great path that slashed towards Ji Yuzhong. The huge hand and the immortal sword collided in an instant, causing a terrifying destructive force to erupt. Ji Yuzhong and Dongfang Yarrow both felt the impact of their opponent's power. Ji Yuzhong couldn't control himself and was forced back a dozen steps. With every step he took, the entire void trembled. The huge golden hand and the unparalleled sword qi dissipated in the void at the same time. Dongfang Yarrow was sent flying hundreds of meters away. At first glance, it seemed that Ji Yuzhong had the upper hand because he was only forced back a dozen steps. However, Ji Yuzhong and Dongfang Yarrow knew that they were evenly matched in the exchange just now. Neither of them had the upper hand. Whoosh! Dongfang Yarrow directly turned into a beam of immortal light and rushed into the distance. Seeing that the situation was not good, she immediately retreated. "Where do you think you're going?" Ji Yuzhong directly shot into the sky and chased after Dongfang Yarrow. Both of them were extremely fast, especially Ji Yuzhong. He displayed his maximum speed of 8 steps and gradually closed the distance between him and Dongfang Yarrow. 8 steps was unparalleled in the world. While Dongfang Yarrow's movement technique was fast, she was not faster than Ji Yuzhong. Ji Yuzhong gradually caught up. The two of them passed through layers of mountain ridges. Dongfang Yarrow suddenly rushed down into a valley below, disappearing into the valley. Ji Yuzhong had no qualms about charging into the valley as well. He was not afraid of being ambushed again, because he had mastered the secret of none, one of the 9 secrets of the immortal path. "Who goes there?" Just as Ji Yuzhong entered the valley, a loud shout came from the valley and a figure appeared in front of Ji Yuzhong. It was a black-bearded, middle-aged man in Daoist robes. The middle-aged Daoist blocked Ji Yuzhong's path. "Get out of my way!" Ji Yuzhong did not say anything else and simply threw a punch at the middle-aged Daoist. Ferocious fist power exploded from his fist. The middle-aged Daoist was shocked. The power of his opponent's punch could not be underestimated. He quickly tried to dodge. However, the middle-aged Daoist still underestimated Ji Yuzhong. Bam! Ji Yuzhong's fist followed like a shadow, slamming into the Daoist's chest. The Daoist was sent flying, blood spewing from his mouth. "Who are you? How dare you hit my people?" At this moment, a cold voice came from the depths of the valley. Then, a young man waving a folding fan walked out from the depths of the valley. "So what if I did? If you know what's good for you, hand over Dongfang Yarrow. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." Ji Yuzhong looked at the young man. Haha, the young man suddenly laughed, as if he had just heard the funniest joke in the world. "Looks like you guys are not going to hand over Dongfang Yarrow," Ji Yuzhong said in a low voice. "Looks like you're not stupid." The young man waved his fan and smiled. Bam! Ji Yuzhong did not say anything else. He threw a punch at the young man. Golden fist power surged towards the young man like a golden wave. Whoosh! The young man waved his fan lightly. A gust of celestial light immediately burst from the fan, dispelling Ji Yuzhong's punch. The fan in the young man's hand was a powerful treasure. "Those who stand in my way will die." Ji Yuzhong's murderous aura soared. He used the 9 secrets of the immortal path. A beam of divine light of the great path shot out from his brow, turning into a divine sword of the great path that slashed towards the young man. The young man was shocked when he saw Ji Yuzhong use the secret sword of the primordial spirit. He came from the Primeval path and naturally knew of the existence of the 9 secrets of the immortal path. Whoosh! The young man was moved. He shot into the sky, trying to dodge the sword light of the great path. However, the sword light followed him like a shadow. It would not stop until blood was shed. Boom! The young man waved his fan. A ball of fire surged from the fan, burning towards the primordial spirit sword of the great path. This was no ordinary fire. It was a type of divine fire of the great path. Fire-shaped patterns of the great path were faintly discernible within the divine fire, intertwining. The primordial spirit sword of the great path was invincible. The immortal sword light pierced through the divine fire of the great path. Even the divine fire of the great path, which could burn the void to oblivion, could not block the immortal sword light. The immortal sword light flashed, and the young man immediately screamed and fell from the sky. What? The others in the valley could not help but be shocked when they saw this. They rushed up, and someone caught the young man falling from the sky. Some of them charged directly at Ji Yuzhong. In the depths of the valley, someone smiled and then disappeared into the void in an instant. No one knew where he went. Chapter 2549. No one could survive being struck by the primordial spirit sword of Wei. The murderous power emanating from the primordial spirit sword of Wei could directly destroy a cultivator's primordial spirit. With Ji Yuzhong's level of cultivation, the young cultivator's soul would definitely be destroyed if he was struck by the sword. Young master, everyone panicked when they saw the young cultivator being cut down from the sky by Ji Yuzhong's sword. If the young master died, they wouldn't be able to survive either. 8 figures rushed out of the valley. Including the middle-aged Daoist who had been sent flying by Ji Yuzhong, there were a total of 9 strong cultivators in the sky above the valley with a murderous aura. 3 of them flew down from the sky, while the other 6 closed in on Ji Yuzhong. At this time, the culprit who had caused all this, Dongfang Yarrow, had already left the valley and appeared on a mountain 100 miles away. "Senior brother, I'm sorry," Dongfang Yarrow muttered to herself. She looked at the valley in front of her that was filled with murderous aura and sneered. She had lured Ji Yuzhong to the valley so that Ji Yuzhong would clash with the young man in the valley. As expected, things were developing according to her plan. The young man in the valley was one of Dongfang Yarrow's senior brothers in the primordial Dao sect. This senior brother had a powerful background. He was the great-great-grandson of an important figure in the Taishen sect. That important figure doted on this great-great-grandson a lot, so he had sent 9 strong cultivators to protect him. "Kid, do you know who he is? How dare he hurt our young master?" A black-faced man's expression darkened even more. He stared at Ji Yuzhong and gritted his teeth. "Me. No matter who he is, even if he's the emperor, I'll kill him if he blocks my path." Ji Yuzhong said disapprovingly. All right. A white-haired Daoist in a Daoist robe walked up. This old man was a strong cultivator. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was a sharp gaze that was like the edge of a blade. Powerful great path runes surged from the old Daoist's body. 9 great path runes appeared in the void around him. "Senior brother Xian, the young master is dead." At this time, an angry roar came from the valley. The 3 Daoists who had gone down to check flew up from below. One of them was carrying the young man. What? When the old Taoist heard this, he was shocked. If the young master died, his master would definitely be furious. At that time, they would have to be buried with him. "You really can't take a beating." Ji Yuzhong shrugged his shoulders as if nothing had happened. The 9 powerhouses were all enraged, wishing they could tear this hateful fellow into pieces. "Tell me your name. To dare kill a disciple of my primordial Dao sect, you really have gut." The old Daoist stared at Ji Yuzhong. His words were incomparably cold and filled with killing intent. His fingers were trembling because of Ji Yuzhong. This fellow was extremely ruthless and actually killed the young master right away. If he didn't kill this murderer, he wouldn't be able to answer to his master when he returned. "Senior brother Xian," at this moment, the others also gathered around. "All of you back off. I alone can capture this fellow." An incomparably powerful wave of energy erupted from the old man's body. His eyes flickered like lightning, and in his eyes, Dao patterns appeared and intertwined. Someone from the primordial Dao sect. Ji Yuzhong couldn't help but be startled when he heard this, but then he calmed down. That Dongfang Yarrow was truly ruthless. She actually had such malicious intentions. He immediately understood that Dongfang Yarrow had lured him here to cause trouble. She wanted him to clash with the people of the primordial Dao sect. That damned girl. Ji Yuzhong couldn't help but be furious when he thought of all these things. At the same time, he was secretly shocked. Didn't Dongfang Yarrow join the primordial Dao sect? She actually dared to trick people from her own sect. It seemed that Dongfang Yarrow was willing to disregard everything for revenge. Boom. At this moment, the void suddenly shook violently. The old Taoist attacked. A ball of divine fire rushed out from his hand, turning into an incomparably huge fireball that smashed towards Ji Yuzhong. A terrifying heat rushed out from the fireball. There were 9 Dao patterns inside the fireball. Under the burning of the fireball, the surrounding void was silently annihilated. This was a type of Dao fire. Even saints would be injured if they were burned by it. Ji Yuzhong stretched out his right hand and pressed forward. A hazy celestial light rushed out from his hand and instantly enveloped the fireball. The power of the secret word Wu erupted. The fireball quickly dissipated and finally disappeared completely. This is. The old Taoist was extremely shocked. What kind of great technique was this? It could actually dissolve his own power. This was too unbelievable. Could it be the legendary secret technique that had been lost for countless years? The primordial Dao sect was the inheritance of the Dao ancestor. Even if it wasn't a sect founded by the supreme Dao ancestor himself, it was still a sect founded by the Dao ancestor's disciples and disciples. In ancient times, this lineage was regarded as the most authentic inheritance of the supreme Dao ancestor. The disciples of the primordial Dao sect naturally knew many ancient secrets. At this moment, the hazy celestial light that spread from Ji Yuzhong's hand enveloped the old Taoist. In an instant, the old Taoist was enveloped in celestial light. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the old Taoist's body became incorporeal. It was as if he could completely dissipate in the void at any time and turn into nothingness. As expected, it really is that secret technique. The old Taoist smiled. Before he instantly turned into nothingness, he smiled because he had confirmed one thing. Senior brother Xian, the other disciples of the Dao sect were all shocked when they saw this. It really is the secret word Wu! A voice sounded in the void in the distance. A figure appeared in the void. It was the senior brother of the primordial Dao sect, Xian. The secret technique of anti-emptiness? Ji Yuzhong's eyes narrowed when he saw the figure in the distance. This old Taoist was not simple. He had actually mastered the secret technique of anti-emptiness, one of the 9 secrets of the immortal path. However, Ji Yuzhong quickly understood. The primordial Dao sect was the inheritance of the Dao ancestor. It was not strange at all that the people in the sect had mastered the 9 secrets of the immortal path. Of course, the 9 secrets of the immortal path were supreme techniques of the immortal path that the Dao ancestor had imparted to the 9 disciples. Each of the 9 disciples had mastered a secret technique. The 9th secret was in the hands of Sky Emperor Ziyang. Ji Yufei had learned the secret word Wu from Sky Emperor Ziyang and passed it on to Ji Yuzhong. Heavenly Emperor Purple Sun's identity was naturally on the verge of being revealed. Everyone had a tacit understanding. As for the primordial Dao sect, it was very likely that one of the 9 disciples of the supreme Dao ancestor had founded the sect. Could the founder of the primordial Dao sect be Dao Master Anti-Emptiness? Chapter 2550. Ji Yuzhong had killed the great-great-grandson of a great figure from the primordial Dao sect with a primordial spirit sword of Dao, thus incurring a grudge with the primordial Dao sect. This was what Dongfang Yarrow wanted to see, because she hoped that Ji Yuzhong would clash with the primordial Dao sect. That way, she would be able to avenge her father's death. As a disciple of the primordial Dao sect, she naturally knew how powerful it was. It was definitely one of the most powerful cultivation forces on the Tenglong continent. After all, the primordial Dao sect's legacy was related to the legendary supreme Dao ancestor. Its foundation was incomparably deep. Ji Yuzhong used the secret art of void, one of the 9 secrets of immortal Dao, in an attempt to turn Daoist Shen into nothingness. However, Daoist Shen used the secret art of void and escaped. Mph, I don't believe you're truly invincible. On a mountain peak 100 miles away, Dongfang Yarrow sneered. Ji Yuzhong had killed the great-great-grandson of a great figure from the primordial Dao sect. That person would definitely not let the matter rest and would likely descend to the eastern region to avenge his great-grandson. Even she had to address that great figure as Grandmaster. If he came personally, then Ji Yufei and his disciple wouldn't have it so easy. Dongfang Yarrow didn't linger. She turned and left. At this time, Ji Yuzhong and Daoist Shen were still fighting. Daoist Shen's secret art of void posed a great threat to Ji Yuzhong. Because at crucial moments, Daoist Shen would immediately flee into the void to avoid all attacks. Even the secret art of void couldn't do anything to him. "Hand over the secret art of void and I'll let you live," Daoist Shen's voice rang out in the void. Daoist Shen's voice rang out in the air. His fleshly body had fused with the air and no one could sense his existence. This was the power of the secret art of void. Ji Yuzhong snorted coldly. Then, his body blurred and he actually fused with the void around him, attacking Daoist Shen. What? Daoist Shen couldn't help but be shocked at this scene. He never would have thought that this person would know one of the 9 secrets of immortal Tao, the secret art of void. The two used the secret art of void at the same time. Their silhouettes moved extremely quickly in the void. Bang! Boom! Ji Yuzhong and Daoist Shen unleashed their unfathomable might. The space between them was constantly collapsing, with chaotic energy swirling within. "You're only at this level. Looks like you don't have to play anymore," Ji Yuzhong suddenly said. After that, a supreme energy fluctuation erupted from his body as a hazy immortal light radiated from his body. Anything that was enveloped by this misty immortal light would be completely obliterated. Even the sky and the void were annihilated, turned into nothingness by that immortal light. Daoist Shen, whose immortal body had fused with the void, sensed great danger. Without a second thought, he backed away from the immortal light. The others weren't as lucky as Daoist Shen. The immortal light of annihilation radiating from Ji Yuzhong's body instantly enveloped an area of tens of miles. There were cries of surprise and angry roars. The 8 cultivators from the far ancient path sect were enveloped by the celestial light. In an instant, the 8 cultivators from the far ancient path sect were annihilated by the celestial light. Even their primordial spirits couldn't escape. Daoist Shen was extremely shocked. His opponent had mastered a legendary secret art. He had no chance of winning at all. Thinking of this, he turned around and left. However, Ji Yuzhong wasn't going to let him go so easily. Whoosh! He used the 8 desolation steps and chased after Daoist Shen with extreme speed. With just a few steps, he caught up to Daoist Shen. "How dare you!" Daoist Shen was extremely shocked. He crushed a jade talisman in his hand and a ball of fire immediately spread from his hand, enveloping him. In the next moment, Daoist Shen's body became blurry. He was about to escape into the void. Bang! The void crumbled as Ji Yuzhong displayed the heaven-covering palm. A huge golden palm instantly enveloped the entire world, directly smashing Daoist Shen, who was about to escape into the void, out of the void. What? Daoist Shen's shock was no small matter. The huge golden hand slammed down from the sky, sealing off a part of the world and blocking the sky. Die! After Ji Yuzhong stopped Daoist Shen, he used his primordial spirit swords and slashed at Daoist Shen. Daoist Shen knew how terrifying the primordial spirit swords were. He flew into the sky and dodged the slashing primordial spirit swords, but he couldn't dodge the heaven-shrouding hand. Boom! With a loud sound, Daoist Shen fell from the sky like a meteor. The huge impact caused the ground to collapse, forming a huge pit and sending dust flying. Voom! At this moment, there was a rumble from Ji Yuzhong's body. Golden divine swords appeared in the void around him, emitting a shocking wave of sword chi. These golden divine swords were not real swords, but golden sword chi that Ji Yuzhong had conjured. Go! Ji Yuzhong shouted and waved his right hand downwards. The countless golden swords floating around him immediately flew up and slashed at the huge pit on the ground. Whoosh! Shocking sword light fell from the sky and landed on the ground. Everywhere the sword light passed, the void was cut open, leaving behind a pitch-black spatial crack. Just as the sword light fell from the sky like rain, Ji Yuzhong suddenly couldn't sense Daoist Shen's aura anymore. It was as if Daoist Shen had disappeared into thin air. Another secret technique of anti-emptiness, Ji Yuzhong muttered to himself. This was the only way to avoid his attack. At this time, a beam of divine light surged from Ji Yuzhong's brow. This divine light rushed out from Ji Yuzhong's brow, turning into a divine sword of the great path that slashed at Daoist Shen, who had escaped into the void. Whoosh! The sword light swept through the void in an instant, bringing with it a gush of blood. Daoist Shen, who had escaped into the void, screamed and fell out of the void. Being hit by a primordial spirit sword of the Great Path was definitely a death sentence. The murderous power contained in the primordial spirit sword of the Great Path immediately invaded Daoist Shen's body, destroying his life force. Boom! With a loud sound, Daoist Shen's body exploded. He was decisive and did not hesitate at all. The moment he was hit by the primordial spirit sword of the Great Path, his primordial spirit broke through the top of his head and rushed out. Chapter 2551. Shen Daoist was one of the saints of the archaic Dao sect. When he self-destructed, a terrifying destructive power enveloped the surrounding 10 miles of space and swallowed Ji Yuzhong. Rumble, the world shook and the 10 miles of space collapsed. It was annihilated and turned into nothingness. When Shen Daoist self-destructed, he controlled the power to a radius of around 10 miles. That way, the destructive power of the explosion would be even stronger. He's still not dead. Shen Daoist's primordial spirit soared into the sky and escaped. However, he had lost his body. It would not be easy for him to recover. Whoosh! Just when Daoist Shen's primordial spirit thought that Ji Yuzhong was dead for sure, a figure suddenly appeared behind his primordial spirit. A sword light flashed by in an instant. Then, Shen Daoist's primordial spirit gradually dispersed like snow under the sun, turning into nothingness in the end. There was no suspense. Shen Daoist of the archaic Dao sect had died. His body and soul were both destroyed. If this news were to spread, it would definitely shock the entire Tenglong continent. The people of the archaic Dao sect were all killed by Ji Yuzhong. At this moment, a furious roar came from the archaic Dao sect. Then, a white-haired old man rushed out from the ancestral grounds of the archaic Dao sect and disappeared from the world. Ji Yuzhong had no idea what was going on. After killing Daoist Shen, he returned to the East Imperial City. At this moment, in the East Imperial City's City Lord's mansion, divine light soared into the sky and countless formation runes appeared in the void. A figure sat cross-legged in the middle of a huge formation, controlling it with all his might. Essence chi gathered from all directions as a gigantic will appeared in the sky. It emitted a destructive energy that continuously obliterated a pavilion. Countless runes appeared on the building as well, activating an extremely powerful force that protected the building. This pavilion was the East Royal City's governor's mansion's treasure depository. Ji Yufei was using all his strength to activate the Great Formation's power to form the world-exterminating roulette in an attempt to destroy the treasure depository's Great Protective Formation. However, the protective formation was not ordinary. Even with Ji Yufei's ability, he could not destroy it in a short period of time. He could only take it slow. Ji Yufei and his disciple are actually thinking about the treasure tower. In the East Royal Kingdom, some powerful cultivators rushed into the sky and saw the scene in the City Lord's residence. They were all extremely shocked. The treasure tower of the City Lord's residence was not unfamiliar to all the cultivators in the city. It was the place where the past City Lords of the East Royal Kingdom kept their treasures. Only the City Lord of the East Royal Kingdom had the right to enter the tower. Apart from the City Lord of the East Royal Kingdom, no one else could enter the tower. Rumor had it that the City Lord of the East Royal City, Dongfang Zun, was killed by Ji Yufei and his disciple. If Dongfang Zun really died, then no one in the entire East Royal City would be able to enter the treasure repository, not even Dongfang Zun's daughter, Dongfang Yao. Can he succeed? Someone murmured. The East Imperial City's City Lord's mansion had existed for countless years, but since ancient times, no one had ever been able to break into this building. Others might not be able to do it, but this Ji Yufei, some people were optimistic about Ji Yufei, thinking that he could break the protective array of the treasure house, break into the treasure house, and take away all the treasures inside. For countless years, no one knew exactly how many treasures were stored in the treasure repository. I don't think so. There was a portion of people who didn't think highly of Ji Yufei. One had to know that before Ji Yufei, there had been existences even more stunning than Ji Yufei who had attacked the East Imperial City. However, even if those people attacked the East Royal City and breached the City Lord's mansion, they couldn't break through the protective formation of the treasure-storing tower. The treasure-storing tower was still standing tall in the city lord's mansion. Preposterous, Ji Yufei, who was sitting cross-legged in the formation, muttered. He realized that the inscriptions of the protective formation were hard to destroy. These inscriptions seemed to contain a trace of immortal divinity. Ji Yufei's formation evolved into the world-exterminating wheel. The waves of energy it emitted were terrifying, and it had the power to destroy the heavens and earth. The world-exterminating wheel descended from the sky and enveloped the entire treasure house. Inside the wheel, there seemed to be a world evolving, emitting waves of energy that made people's hearts palpitate. However, no matter how hard Ji Yufei activated the world-exterminating wheel, he couldn't do anything to the treasure house. In the end, Ji Yufei could only stop and let the world-exterminating wheel operate on its own. He retreated and walked out of the formation. "Master, what's the situation?" Outside the formation, Ji Yuzhong went forward. Ji Yufei shook his head. The inscriptions of the protective formation were almost indestructible. Could it be that the treasure house was built by the legendary ancient Eastern Emperor? This seemed to be the only way to explain why the inscriptions of the protective formation contained immortal divinity. The ancient Eastern Emperor was a human emperor. He rose to power in the East domain and was invincible in the human realm. At this moment, the dazzling divine light that rushed out from the city lord's mansion disappeared. The terrifying waves also gradually dissipated. All the cultivators in the East Royal City secretly heaved a sigh of relief. They want to attack the treasure house. When the people of the Dongfang family heard this news, they were all shocked and angry. They were very clear about the importance of the treasure vault. Once the treasure vault was breached by Ji Yufei and his disciple, it would be a great loss for the Dongfang family. Following the death of Dongfang Zun, the people of the Dongfang family became silent again. At this time, there were internal problems in the Dongfang family. There were different voices in the family. Some people supported using the ancestral weapon to kill Ji Yufei and his disciple. However, there were also people who opposed the use of the ancestral weapon. One should know that the ancestral ground of the Dongfang family could not be lost. The ancestral weapon of the Dongfang family was guarding the ancestral ground of the Dongfang family. If the ancestral weapon was used, the ancestral ground of the Dongfang family would lose the protection of the ancestral weapon. It was very likely that the ancestral ground of the Dongfang family would be in trouble. Ji Yufei and his disciple were still living in the city lord's mansion, waiting for the people of the Dongfang family to come to their deaths. However, for several days, there was no movement from the Dongfang family. On the other hand, Ji Yufei sensed an extremely powerful aura that disappeared as soon as it appeared. There was an unimaginable expert spying on them from outside the East Royal City. "Good fella, he can actually escape from my divine sense." Ji Yufei couldn't help but be moved. He reminded Ji Yuzhong not to leave the East Royal City so easily. One should know that this unknown existence made him feel uneasy. Early in the morning, an old man appeared on a short mountain outside the East Royal City. The old man's eyes were like lightning. As he opened and closed his eyes, rays of light shot out from his eyes. A cold murderous intent spread out from his body. When the old man appeared on the short mountain near the East Royal City, Ji Yufei sensed the arrival of this expert. "Ji Yufei and his disciple, come out and accept your death." The old man suddenly roared in anger. He directly flew up from the short mountain and arrived above the East Royal City. A terrifying murderous intent exploded from his body, causing the sky to change color. "Who dares to come here and cause trouble?" A voice came from the East Royal City. Immediately, a silhouette rushed out from the city. It was a dark-skinned, middle-aged man. "You are Ji Yufei." The old man stared at the expert who rushed out from the East Royal City. His eyes flickered with murderous intent. Both of his hands were trembling, ready to attack at any time. "You're looking for my master. Are you trying to throw your life away?" Ji Yuzhong sized up the old man. The old man's body was shrouded in a layer of Dao aura. Even Ji Yuzhong couldn't see through the old man's cultivation. "Good fella. Could this guy be an immortal venerable?" "Humph, I'm here to send you all to your deaths." The old man stared at Ji Yuzhong and said coldly, "There's no point in talking. We'll only know after we fight." Ji Yuzhong struck out with the heaven-covering palm. A huge golden palm appeared between the heavens and earth. It emitted an incomparably powerful energy wave and slammed towards the old man. Rumble, the vast and mighty energy ripples on the golden hand directly shook the void of this part of the world. Martial Dao battle technique. The old man was shocked. He hurriedly spat out a divine pearl towards the descending heaven-covering palm. A powerful energy wave erupted from the divine pearl. Swish. The old man's silhouette vanished into the void. In the next moment, Ji Yuzhong felt a faint fluctuation in the void behind him. Bam! A palm silently struck out from the void, slamming heavily on Ji Yuzhong's back, sending him flying thousands of meters away. Anti-void secret technique. Ji Yuzhong was incomparably shocked. He stabilized his body and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Then, he slowly turned around and looked at the old man. "You are from the immemorial Dao sect." Ji Yuzhong stared at the old man and said in a deep voice. The fact that this old man could injure him was enough to show how powerful he was. One should know that his indestructible golden body wasn't that easy to be injured. "So it was you who killed my grandson. I, Qin Ying, will definitely turn the two of you into ashes." Qin Ying's eyes turned red as he spoke. He couldn't wait to pounce forward and tear Ji Yuzhong apart. "Is that so? Let's see if you have the ability to do so." Ji Yuzhong's expression was incomparably solemn. "Kill." The old man waved his hands. The entire world shook along with his movements. Divine patterns of the Great Path rushed out from his hands and imprinted themselves into the void. At that moment, Ji Yuzhong felt the void around him distort. In the next moment, he found himself in a vast space where he couldn't see the sky or the ground. What's going on? While Ji Yuzhong was shocked, he still remained calm. "Die." The old man's voice sounded in the space. Then, beams of divine light appeared in the space and the space rapidly shrank. Chapter 2552. An expert from the primordial Dao sect had arrived. He came straight to their doorstep and displayed his absolute dominance. However, Ji Yufei and his disciple weren't people to be trifled with. Ji Yuzhong stepped out to fight against this expert from the primordial Dao sect. This was an important figure from the primordial Dao sect. This elder usually didn't reveal himself, but he had a very high status in the primordial Dao sect. This time, his grandson and disciple were both killed by Ji Yuzhong. This made him furious and he wanted nothing more than to tear Ji Yufei and his disciple into pieces. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The void trembled and the old man created a void of annihilation, swallowing Ji Yuzhong into it. Then, he activated the power of the void, wanting to obliterate Ji Yuzhong in the void of annihilation. Ji Yuzhong stood in this space and he saw countless void Dao patterns surging around him. They shone with dazzling divine light and an extremely strong destructive power was rapidly condensing. Could this fellow be one of the 9 legendary primordial celestial sovereigns, the Void Dao Sovereign? Ji Yuzhong sensed the rapidly condensing destructive power and couldn't help but be shocked. The combat strength displayed by this elder was very strong. He had already cultivated the great Dao of Void to an unimaginable level. Buzz. Ji Yuzhong didn't dare to be slow. He activated his indestructible golden body and 9 golden Dao patterns appeared on his body. He used the 9 Dao patterns to seal his body so that the power of his martial body wouldn't attract the power of heaven's wrath. "Mph, you are just a martial saint. Even if you are invincible, you will still die today." The elder's voice rang out in the space. "People from the primordial Dao sect are only SOSO. If you have the ability, then come at me." Ji Yuzhong's expression was extremely solemn. He knew that he had met his match today. This elder's cultivation was definitely far above his. He felt a great deal of pressure. "Since you want to be reincarnated, I shall grant you your wish. I shall let the 4 of you understand that I am the primordial Dao sect's great heaven saint emperor." The elder said such words. "What great heaven saint emperor? I have never heard of him," Ji Yuzhong said disapprovingly. He wasn't lying. He really hadn't heard of the primordial Tao sect's Great Heaven Saint Emperor and didn't know who he was. However, the Great Heavenly Saint Emperor was very famous among the saints of the older generation. He was an immortal Tao Saint Emperor who achieved Tao in the immemorial era. It was rumored that during the era of the Great Sky Saint Emperor, the supreme Tao ancestor was still around. The Great Sky Saint Emperor was the supreme Tao ancestor's grand disciple. Humph! The heavenly Great Saint Emperor was enraged. Then, he used his killer move right away. 9 immortal celestial marks appeared in the killing void and headed towards Ji Yuzhong. Every single immortal rune radiated with a terrifying destructive power. It was as if every single immortal rune could destroy the heavens and earth, causing Ji Yuzhong's heart to palpitate. This was a Saint Emperor-level Tao pattern. Yi Futian did not know what secret technique the heavenly Great Saint Emperor had used to actually dare to use a Saint Emperor-level Tao pattern. This Saint Emperor Great Tao power could attract the power of heaven's wrath. However, what shocked Ji Yuzhong was that the power of heaven's wrath did not descend. How was this possible? Could it be that this guy could actually ignore the power of heaven's wrath? As such, there was no longer any suspense in this battle. One should know that Ji Yuzhong was only a martial saint. He was 2 cultivation levels lower than the Great Sky Saint Emperor. Among the saints, he was invincible. However, it did not mean that he could fight against a Saint King or even a Saint Emperor. If his opponent was a Saint King, he still had the power to fight. However, the Great Sky Saint Emperor was an immortal Tao ancient emperor. As such, he had no chance of winning at all, even if he had mastered the secret word void. Ji Yuzhong walked the path of proving his Tao through strength. He was very clear that as long as one's strength was strong enough, any secret technique could be broken. It was the same for the secret word void. Roar! Ji Yuzhong wouldn't sit still and wait for death. He roared, his long hair fluttered in the wind and his eyes flashed like lightning. He was going all out. He immediately used the secret technique of ascension. A pitilessly powerful energy fluctuation erupted from his body. Rumble! The 9 golden Tao patterns that appeared on his body immediately shone with dazzling Tao light. A powerful aura of the Great Path erupted from each of the Tao patterns. It was as if 9 golden divine suns appeared on Ji Yuzhong's body. Powerful martial arts power spread from his body and directly broke through the 9 divine marks of the immortal Tao. What? In a dark corner of the absolute void, the Great Sky Saint Emperor's eyes narrowed when he saw this. He could see the origin of the secret technique that Ji Yuzhong had used. It's the secret technique of ascension. This person is not a cultivator of the immortal Tao. How could he have obtained the secret technique of ascension? The Great Sky Saint Emperor was the grand disciple of the supreme Tao ancestor. He was naturally very familiar with the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. However, the 9 secret techniques that the supreme Tao ancestor had created had been passed down to 9 disciples. Every disciple had only mastered one secret technique. The master of the Great Sky Saint Emperor was Tao Lord Antivoid, one of the 9 primordial immortal lords. Buzz! The entire absolute void shook. Ji Yuzhong's desperation was no small matter. The secret technique of ascension had stimulated all of his potential. The powerful force shook the void. This, the Great Heavenly Saint Emperor was extremely shocked. His absolute killing void was one of his trump cards. Anyone who was trapped by his absolute killing void would not be able to survive. They would all be killed by it. However, Ji Yuzhong's performance had exceeded the Great Sky Saint Emperor's expectations. Ji Yuzhong's martial body was unimaginably strong. Even an ordinary Saint King would have a hard time suppressing a martial sage. It was no exaggeration to say that a martial artist was invincible among the same level. It was especially so for the Great Sky Saint Emperor. It should be known that although the martial ancestor had disappeared in the immemorial era, his disciples and grand disciples were still roaming the world. A martial artist who was successful in cultivation was definitely a synonym for power. I don't believe that you can really defy the heavens. The Great Sky Saint Emperor's fighting spirit was completely stimulated by Ji Yuzhong. After so many years, it was rare for him to be serious. He saw Ji Yuzhong as an opponent that was worthy of his attention. In the next moment, the 9 celestial marks that were repelled by Ji Yuzhong released billions of rays of celestial light. Above each celestial mark, there was a vague silhouette. Boom! The entire absolute void shook violently. Then, the destructive power soared instantly. The 9 celestial marks broke through the layers of golden light and headed straight for Ji Yuzhong. 2 great path forces clashed. The Saint Emperor-level celestial marks were much stronger than the Saint-level Dao marks. Ji Yuzhong's 9 golden Dao marks were being suppressed. He is a Saint Emperor after all. Ji Yuzhong knew that he was in danger this time. The difference between a saint and a Saint Emperor was hard to bridge. It was impossible for him to be a match for this old man. He didn't panic because he knew that this old man couldn't kill him. After all, his master was in the East Imperial City. His master wouldn't let him be killed by this old man. As expected, the moment the 9 celestial marks of the Saint Emperor broke through Ji Yuzhong's golden Dao marks, the entire absolute void suddenly shook. A huge golden hand tore through the void. Countless runes collapsed in the face of this giant golden hand, and a rift tens of thousands of feet long was torn in the absolute death void from the outside. The aura of the outside world immediately flowed in through that crack. Rumble, in the next moment, thunder roared in the depths of the sky. A terrifying destructive aura descended from the sky. Under the interaction of the aura of the Great Path, the power of heavenly wrath reacted immediately. The power of heavenly wrath was activated. How dare you! The great Sky Saint Emperor roared. He had no choice but to seal his body immediately. Once the power of heavenly wrath descended, even if he was a Saint Emperor, his body and soul would be destroyed. Ji Yuzhong hurriedly used the 9 Dao marks to seal his cultivation, suppressing his cultivation below the saint level. Ji Yufei, it's you. The absolute void disappeared and the great Sky Saint Emperor's figure appeared in the void. He stared at a young man in black opposite him and his eyes glowed brightly. At that moment, the huge golden hand that tore through the absolute void did not dissipate. It was still slapping towards the great Sky Saint Emperor. A powerful ripple of power descended from the huge golden hand. Very well. Since you're here, I'll take care of both of you today. That will save me some trouble. The great Sky Saint Emperor was very confident. It should be known that he was a Grandmaster-level existence in the Archean Dao sect. He was second only to the founding ancestor. Moreover, the great Sky Saint Emperor was an ancient Saint Emperor. In the human world, apart from the Saint Venerables, he was invincible. The number of Saint Venerables in the Tenglong continent could be counted on one's fingers. Moreover, those existences would not attack easily. Most importantly, Ji Yufei was not a Saint Venerate. If Ji Yufei was a Saint Venerate, the great Sky Saint Emperor would definitely not dare to come looking for him. Actually, the great Sky Saint Emperor was very careful. He had come to the vicinity of the East Imperial City on the 2nd day after Daoist Xian had been killed by Ji Yuzhong. He had been loitering around the East Imperial City and spying on Ji Yufei and his disciple in the city. After discovering that Ji Yufei and his disciple were not heavenly venerables or even heavenly emperors, he openly came to kill them and named Ji Yufei and his disciple to be killed. There are many people who want to kill me, Ji Yufei. However, I'm the one who kills them in the end. Do you think you're an exception? Ji Yufei looked at the great Sky Saint Emperor and said with a smile. Although the great Sky Saint Emperor was an ancient Saint Emperor, he was not a big deal. If the full power of the undying battle body was unleashed, he would definitely be able to fight against a Saint Emperor. It was not as if Ji Yufei could not fight back. Young man, you're too arrogant, the great Sky Saint Emperor said. At the same time, his figure became blurry and he instantly disappeared into the void. The golden palm that Ji Yufei had unleashed landed on thin air and shattered the void where the great Sky Saint Emperor had been standing. Even the chaotic aura was blown out. Chapter 2553. The Great Heaven Saint Emperor was very domineering. He unleashed the anti-void mystic technique right away and instantly appeared above Ji Yufei's head. He stomped down on Ji Yufei's head. Humph, you know that I'm a cultivator, Yet you still want to fight me in close combat. Are you seeking death? Ji Fei lifted his head and looked up. At the same time, he clenched his right fist and punched upward. It seemed like a casual punch, but it made the heavenly Great Saint Emperor's scalp go numb. The Great Heavenly Saint Emperor disappeared in the void again without hesitation. Boom! With a muffled sound, the void trembled. Ji Fei's seemingly ordinary punch displayed great power, directly shattering the void above him. One punch pierced through heaven and earth. When Ji Fei punched through heaven and earth, the Great Heaven Saint Emperor's figure appeared 10,000 feet away. He looked at the void that had been punched through and couldn't help but be shocked. This Ji Fei is indeed very strong. Heavenly Great Saint Emperor thought to himself. At that moment, Ji Zhong had already retreated. He didn't want to join forces with his master to fight the Great Heaven Saint Emperor. He believed that his master could defeat the Great Heaven Saint Emperor on his own. Kill! Heavenly Great Saint Emperor bellowed as he brandished both his hands at Ji Fei. Beams of nearly transparent light blades shot out from his hands, spinning as they slashed at Ji Fei. Humph! Ji Fei stretched out his right hand and pressed forward. The light blades immediately shattered in the void and dissipated into specks of light. Big hand covers the sky. Ji Fei then used the heaven-covering palm and a huge golden palm appeared in the sky. It emitted a terrifying wave of power and slammed towards the Great Heaven Saint Emperor. Rumble! The huge golden hand sealed the void and shook the heavens and the earth. It was like a primordial divine mountain had fallen from the sky, and it shook the void to the point that pitch-black spatial cracks that were like spiderwebs appeared. Heavenly Great Saint Emperor only felt his body tense up. He knew that things were bad. Bang! Great Heavenly Saint Emperor was directly smacked down from the sky by Ji Fei's heaven-covering hand. With a boom, he smashed onto the ground. The entire ground instantly collapsed, and dust flew everywhere. Roar! The Heavenly Great Saint Emperor rushed out from the ground, his entire body glowing with celestial light. Streaks of void Tao patterns circled around him, and there seemed to be the divine voice of the great Tao ringing in the void. You are the successor of the Tao Father. Leave. I won't kill you. Ji Fei said as he looked at the Great Heaven Saint Emperor, who was rushing up from the ground. What did you say? When the Heavenly Great Saint Emperor heard this, he was instantly enraged. He had never been looked down upon like this before. This little fellow was too despicable. He deserved to die. I've already shown mercy just now. Ji Fei said indifferently. You, the Heavenly Great Saint Emperor was shocked and enraged. He was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Who do you think you are? You dare to look down on this Saint Emperor? I'm going to die from anger. The Heavenly Great Saint Emperor roared angrily. His eyes were red, and he looked as though he was going to eat someone up. Sigh, I'm speaking the truth. Leave. I don't want to get involved with the Wushang Dao ancestor. Ji Fei waved his hand and said. The Heavenly Great Saint Emperor had mastered one of the 9 secrets of the immortal path, the antivoid secret skill. He was definitely the successor of the Tao Father. If Ji Fei killed him, he would have some karma with the Wushang Dao ancestor. No one could predict what would happen in the future. In the depths of the sky, there were a few figures that seemed to have existed since ancient times, which made Ji Fei's heart palpitate. I'm going to kill you. The Heavenly Great Saint Emperor's face turned hideous. In the next moment, he disappeared into the void. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. It seems like I have to teach you a lesson. As Ji Fei said this, a ball of golden light suddenly surged from his body. It instantly turned into 3 heads and 6 arms. The 6 arms danced and shattered the void, hitting the Heavenly Great Saint Emperor, who had escaped into the void. This is, when the Heavenly Great Saint Emperor saw Ji Fei's 3 heads and 6 arms, he couldn't help but be shocked. This technique was a mystique of the divine ape from the primordial age, but Ji Fei had learned it. Ji Fei's battle physique was already extremely strong. In addition to the 3 heads and 6 arms technique, the rotation of his 6 arms could shake the heavens and the earth. His combat power was shocking. Chaos Fist. Heaven Covering Palm. Yin Yang Dao Sword. Ji Yufei's 3 heads and 6 arms used 3 major battle techniques at the same time. The chaotic aura that erupted from the Chaos Fist shot up into the sky, the heaven-covering palm instantly enveloped the entire heaven and earth, and the yin-yang Dao sword turned into 2 huge dragons that soared thousands of feet. When the heavenly great Saint Emperor saw this scene, he was dumbfounded. Ji Yufei used 3 great battle skills to attack him at the same time. The entire region of space was sealed by the 3 supreme powers. Even if he wanted to use the anti-emptiness secret technique, he would not be able to escape at this moment. Without any suspense, the heavenly great Saint Emperor was directly suppressed by Ji Yufei's attack, which was like a strong gale sweeping away the fallen leaves. His entire body was sent flying. Impossible, the heavenly great Saint Emperor spat out a mouthful of blood, and the clothes in front of his chest were stained with drops of blood. He couldn't believe that Ji Yufei could injure him. He tried his best to block the yin-yang Dao sword and the heaven-covering palm, but he couldn't block Ji Yufei's Chaos Fist. Ji Yufei's supreme punch landed directly on the heavenly great Saint Emperor's chest, causing it to cave in and shatter his sternum. Even the Saint Emperor immortal body couldn't withstand Ji Yufei's Chaos Fist. Nothing is impossible. Ji Yufei displayed a domineering stance. He took a step forward and displayed his extreme speed of 8 steps. He instantly caught up with the heavenly great Saint Emperor who was sent flying. Bang! Ji Yufei stomped his foot down and stomped the heavenly great Saint Emperor down from the sky. The heavenly great Saint Emperor was like a meteorite as he fell from the sky. He broke through the ground again and smashed into the ground. The dust on the ground flew up high. Roar! The heavenly great Saint Emperor was about to go crazy. He couldn't accept such a reality. He was a high and mighty celestial emperor. When had he ever been in such a pathetic state? He burst forth with void Dao patterns and charged out from the ground in a disheveled manner. However, what awaited him was a huge foot. Bang! Ji Yufei didn't show any mercy. He stomped his foot on the heavenly great Saint Emperor's face again and stomped him down again. A Saint Emperor was humiliated by Ji Yufei again and again. This made the heavenly great Saint Emperor vomit blood. He was close to going crazy. He used the power of the great Dao of Void with all his might and instantly vanished into the void. Die! In the next moment, he suddenly appeared behind Ji Yufei. Void Dao patterns transformed into deadly immortal sabers that slashed at Ji Yufei. The immortal sabers formed by Dao patterns were divine sabers of the great Dao. Every saber light could kill a Saint Emperor. This was the heavenly great Saint Emperor's trump card. At this moment, he even used his trump card. Chapter 2554. The void Dao pattern transformed into a heavenly saber that slashed at Ji Yufei. The 9 saber lights tore through heaven and earth as though they were going to split the sky and earth apart. They displayed great power. This kind of great path divine saber contained the power of the great path. If one was hit by it, even a sage would be destroyed in both body and soul. Even a sacred emperor would be in danger of dying. Are you finally going to risk your life? Ji Yufei's expression did not change in the face of such an attack. He was extremely calm. Vroom. Just as the 9 saber lights were about to hit Ji Yufei, a ball of misty celestial light surged out of Ji Yufei's body. The void vibrated and the 9 saber lights instantly slashed into the ball of celestial light that was surging out of Ji Yufei's body. The 9 dazzling saber lights dimmed immediately. The void Dao pattern that had turned into saber lights was faintly discernible. It seemed like it would dissipate at any time. Ji Yufei used the secret word nothing. The power of the secret word nothing could destroy everything in the world. Even the sky and earth could be turned into true nothingness. The 9 saber lights were fixed in the ball of celestial light that was coming out of Ji Yufei's body. They could not slash further. The secret word nothing. The heavenly great Saint Emperor was extremely shocked. At that moment, the 9 saber lights started to dissipate. They turned into 9 void Dao patterns and were beaten back to their original form. Then, even the 9 void Dao patterns were destroyed by the power of the secret word nothing. You are no match for me. Ji Yufei's body radiated with misty celestial light. At that moment, he was practically invulnerable. No divine power or great technique could break through the ball of celestial light that was spreading out of his body. Humph! The heavenly great Saint Emperor's expression was extremely ugly. His opponent had mastered such a supreme secret technique of the immortal path. Even if he had mastered a supreme secret technique of the immortal path, he would not be a match for his opponent. With a snap, the heavenly great Saint Emperor crushed a piece of divine jade. A ball of celestial light immediately exploded from the piece of divine jade and enveloped him instantly. Swoosh! With a soft sound, the ball of celestial light enveloped the heavenly great Saint Emperor and disappeared into the void. Master, at this moment, Ji Yuzhong rushed over. Forget it. Ji Yufei waved his hand and said. He did not want to offend the Primeval Dao sect. Of course, he was not afraid of the Primeval Dao sect. After all, the Primeval Dao sect was the legacy of the Supreme Dao ancestor. Ji Yuzhong did not say anything else. After that, Ji Yufei and Ji Yuzhong returned to the East Royal City. The battle outside the East Imperial Kingdom had made all the factions wary of Ji Yufei and his disciple. Some of the older generation had even seen through Great Sky Supremacy's background. It should be known that the Great Heaven Saint Emperor was an ancient Saint Emperor. In the distant past, he had once shaken a region and was an expert among the Saint Emperors of the Celestial Path. Even Tian Hong isn't a match for that master and disciple. The news spread like wildfire. Everyone was shocked, especially the Dongfang family, who felt an immense pressure. Given how strong Ji Yufei and his disciple were, even if they were to bring out their ancestral weapons, they might not be able to kill both of them. The Dongfang family was in danger of being annihilated. This caused the upper echelons of the Dongfang family to feel uneasy. As for the younger cultivators of the Dongfang family, they did not dare to leave their ancestral grounds. As a superforce, the disciples of the Dongfang family could be found all over the East region. However, at this critical juncture, the disciples of the Dongfang family did not dare to show themselves. Throughout the history of the Dongfang family, there had not been many instances of someone using his own strength to stun the entire Dongfang family. However, Ji Yufei had done it. Dongfang Yaro's methods are way too vicious. In another city thousands of miles away from the East Royal City, an old man in green robes stood behind a young man in a unique courtyard. The old servant advised the young man. I didn't expect her to do this either. The young man sighed. Young master, we can't afford to offend Ji Yufei and his disciple. The old servant in green robes said. Even the great Heaven Saint Emperor was not a match for Ji Yufei and his disciple. No one else could, unless they could invite a saint venerable. How could I not know that we can't afford to offend them? The young man said. Although he came from the Zhao family of the ancients and had access to many resources, it was impossible for him to kill Ji Yufei. Moreover, if the people in the family knew that he was going to deal with Ji Yufei, they would definitely stop him. At this moment, no one was willing to offend an enemy with unlimited potential. The world was about to change. Many great forces were conserving their strength. One should know that with the arrival of the Great Calamity, only the powerful sects could continue to pass on their legacy. All right, let's go back. The young man pondered for a moment before saying such words. Yes, young master. When the old servant in green robes heard this, he was overjoyed. This young master was willing to let go at this crucial moment and return to the Zhao family of the ancients. It was clear that his young master wasn't muddle-headed. Actually, what this old servant didn't know was that the main reason why his young master gave up on wooing Dongfang Yaro was because Dongfang Yaro would even scam her own people. Not many people knew that Dongfang Yaro scammed the ancient Dao sect. However, this young man from the Zhao family of the ancients knew everything. One should know that the Zhao family of the ancients was one of the 3 rulers of the East region. The Zhao family of the ancients had eyes all over the East region. This young man knew everything about Dongfang Yaro's actions. Rumble. Just at this moment, a loud explosion rang out from the East Imperial Kingdom. Immediately after, an endless amount of spiritual light and celestial chi rushed out from the City Lord's residence. Success, we finally succeeded. Within the City Lord's residence, the loud laughter of Ji Yufei and his disciple rang out. All the cultivators in the East Imperial Kingdom were shocked to the extreme. This Jiyu Fei and his disciple really didn't know how to rest. Some of them vaguely guessed something and found it hard to believe. Very quickly, the godlight and celestial qi that rushed out from the city lord's residence were suppressed. The powerful aura instantly disappeared as if it had never appeared. The protective formation of the Tower of Treasures was finally broken by Jiyu Fei and his disciple. Jiyu Fei and his disciple rushed into the Tower of Treasures impatiently. The Tower of Treasures had 9 levels and this was the first level. There were countless treasures placed inside. All of them were extremely rare and contained a huge amount of spiritual qi. At this moment, Jiyu Fei and his disciple could faintly hear the sound of metal clashing. Up to the 2nd level. Without hesitation, Jiyu Fei headed up the stairs to the 2nd level. Seeing this, Jiyu Zhong hurriedly followed. When they arrived at the 2nd level, they were stunned by what they saw. On the 2nd level, countless godlights were rushing left and right, trying to break the seal of the 2nd level and rush out. So many saint weapons. Chapter 2555. Needless to say, the collection in the treasure pavilion within the East Imperial City's city governor's estate was truly heaven-defying. In the boundless years of the past, every single East Imperial City governor would add a great deal of treasures and divine materials to this treasure pavilion. After so many years of accumulation, the treasures and materials in the treasury were so numerous that even Jiyu Fei and Jiyu Zhong were shocked. There were 9 floors in the treasure hoard tower and every floor was like a divine hoard. On the 2nd floor, Jiyu Fei and his disciple discovered over a dozen saint artifacts. They shone with a divine light, making people feel as if they were surrounded by endless saint artifacts. It was an extremely shocking illusion. Although there had been many saints since ancient times, the number of saint weapons left behind by the ancient sages was very limited. It was impossible for there to be an endless number of saint weapons. Unless a certain sovereign was seized by a sudden impulse and refined countless sage artifacts, it would be impossible for him to do so. However, once one reached the supreme level, they were already invincible. It would be useless for them to have so many saint weapons. Moreover, in the world of cultivation, only the weapons refined by oneself were the most suitable for oneself. Those that were not refined by oneself could be used, but it would be very difficult to unleash the true power of these saint weapons. For experts like Jiyu Fei and his disciple, these saint weapons were useless. They were tasteless, but it would be a pity to throw them away. Jiyu Fei and his disciple stood on the 2nd floor. These are complete saint weapons. Jiyu Zhong couldn't help but feel shocked when he sensed the 18 saint weapons floating in the air. Perfect saint weapons were very rare, but there were 18 of them here. The Dongfang family seems to have a very deep foundation. Jiyu Fei's expression turned solemn. The Dongfang family had already collected 18 saint weapons in the East Royal City. Wouldn't there be even more saint weapons in the Dongfang family's ancestral grounds? In fact, what Jiyu Fei didn't know was that although there were still saint weapons in the ancestral land, there weren't many of them. This was because the ancestral land was guarded by ancestral weapons. Ancestral weapons were the foundation of the Dongfang family. The treasury has been breached. How is this possible? In the ancestral grounds of the Dongfang family, in a great hall, the higher-ups of the Dongfang family were all extremely shocked. A great change had occurred in the East Imperial City. A disciple of the Dongfang family who was hidden within the East Imperial City had sent back this news. The Dongfang family was deeply rooted in the Eastern domain. It was not something that ordinary cultivation forces could compare with. No one knew how many cultivators loyal to the Dongfang family were hiding in the Eastern Royal City. However, they thought that even a holy venerable would not be able to break through the tower. Now, it had been broken through by the master and disciple. The higher-ups of the Dongfang family were shocked and felt extremely pained. The hidden treasure tower was a treasure tower that housed countless divine treasures. Most of the divine treasures that the Dongfang family had collected over the years were stored there. The consequences of Jiyu Fei and his disciples' attack on the Vault of Treasures could be imagined. The two of them had obtained so many divine treasures that it was enough to establish a power that could contend against the Dongfang family. How could this be? Isn't the defensive array of the treasure house unbreakable? Someone roared in the great hall. This time, the Dongfang family's losses were too great. Even the higher-ups of the Dongfang family could not sit still. Some of them were so angry that they smashed their cups while others smashed the table beside them. "All right, all of you, shut up." At this time, a black-bearded middle-aged man sitting on the throne in the middle of the great hall roared. This man was the current clan leader of the Dongfang family, Dongfang Chen. "Clan leader, if we don't use the ancestral artifact now, are we going to wait until the master and disciple attack the ancestral grounds?" A white-haired middle-aged man suddenly stood up and shouted. "Dongfang Ifeng, calm down." Next to the white-haired middle-aged man, a handsome and young man reached out and pulled the white-haired middle-aged man, Dongfang Ifeng. "The master and disciple are about to attack the ancestral grounds. How can you all be so indifferent?" Dongfang Ifeng roared. "All right, we need to think about using the ancestral artifact." The current clan leader of the Dongfang family, Dongfang Chen, looked at Dongfang Ifeng and said in a deep voice, "Tempage, you're all a bunch of cowardly fellows." Dongfang Ifeng swept his gaze across the upper echelons of the Dongfang family seated in the Great Hall before he strode out of the Great Hall and left. "Clan leader, should we stop him?" someone asked. Everyone in the Great Hall knew what Dongfang Ifeng wanted to do, but they all coldly watched him leave. Only the young man could not bear to see him leave. "Let him do as he pleases," Dongfang Chen said. "Sigh." The young man said nothing else and sat down. Dongfang Ifeng was arrogant and unruly. He had been isolated in the Dongfang family. He was a tragic figure in the Dongfang family and had once fought with Dongfang Chen for the position of clan leader. However, due to various reasons, Dongfang Ifeng had lost the right to fight for the position. Thus, Dongfang Chen had successfully become the clan leader. Because of this, Dongfang Ifeng had been depressed for a long time. Although he had pulled himself together in the end, no one in the Dongfang family was willing to associate with him. This time, the Dongfang family had recalled all the experts of the Dongfang family because of Ji Yufei and his disciple. Dongfang Ifeng was one of them. The enemy that the Dongfang family had to face this time was different from the past. Ji Yufei and the Dongfang family had a great enmity that would not rest until one side was completely annihilated. Otherwise, this enmity would never be resolved. "Third brother, contact the Zhao family and see if there's a chance for us to join forces," Dongfang Chen said to a middle-aged man to his left. "Yes." The man immediately left the Great Hall after receiving the order. "We'll bide our time for now. We can't afford to panic at a time like this. You should know that the great ancestor is about to awaken from his slumber." Dongfang Chen swept his gaze across the crowd in the Great Hall and said. The people in charge of the Dongfang family immediately became excited. Once the great ancestor awakens from his endless slumber, the crisis facing the Dongfang family would be completely resolved. There was a reason why the Dongfang family had been enduring all this time. Not long after, Dongfang Ifeng really did leave the Dongfang family's ancestral land. Meanwhile, in a certain place in the heavenly realm known as the Dead Region, a sneaky fellow was sneaking towards a large tomb in the depths of the Dead Region. "I don't believe that I, Hei Tian, can't find the way to the lower realm." Chapter 2556. The Death Region of the Heaven Realm was located in the depths of the southern mountains range, a place that was rarely visited by humans. Since ancient times, legends about the Death Region have been passed down. Even in the current era, the Death Region of the Heaven Realm was still a terrifying forbidden ground. Be it humans or beasts, mortals or immortals, as long as they entered the Death Region, it would be hard for them to come out alive. The Death Region was filled with great danger. However, at this moment, in the depths of this forbidden ground, there was a fella looking around sneakily, carefully moving towards the great tomb in front of him. "There's nothing that can stump me, Hei Tian," that person muttered to himself before quickly disappearing into the dusky world. Very quickly, an incomparably powerful ripple spread out from the Death Region. A great tomb cracked open, the chaotic chi within was vast and mighty, as though a chaotic world was evolving within it. A terrifying aura gushed out from the cracked tomb, instantly enveloping a region of millions of li. What's going on? At this moment, All the experts in the southern mountains range sensed this supreme aura. All of them were indescribably shocked. Some of them immediately rushed out from their secluded cultivation grounds. It's coming from the direction of the death region. There's a shocking change in the death region. Someone said something like that. A shocking change in the death region? How is this possible? Just as the experts of the southern mountains range were rushing towards the death region, in the Great Tomb, a silhouette suddenly disappeared into a chaotic passageway behind a stone coffin. Legend has it that the great tomb of a great figure in the immemorial era connected the heaven realm and the mortal realm. To think that it's actually true. These words came from the chaotic passageway. After that, the chaotic passageway behind the stone coffin disappeared, as though it was never there in the first place. The shocking change in the death region not only alarmed the southern mountains range, but also the experts of the other regions in the heaven realm. Some of the most powerful domain lords crossed over and appeared in the southern mountains range. And at this time, the person who caused this shocking change had already descended to the mortal realm. In one of the star regions of the mortal realm, an incomparably powerful ripple suddenly spread out. The entire space distorted and crumbled. A chaotic passageway appeared between the heaven and earth. A figure shrouded in chaotic light fell out from the chaotic passageway. Wow, He Tian, have finally returned to the human world. After that person fell out of the chaotic passageway, he immediately raised his head and roared excitedly. Sons of bitches from the heaven realm, just you wait. The next time I go up there, I will teach you a lesson. He Tian said hatefully. He could no longer stay in the heaven realm. He had offended an unimaginable existence. At this time, the old tortoise could not even take care of himself and could not spare any time to help He Tian. As a result, He Tian was chased by that person for thousands of miles. He had no choice but to escape into the dead realm. He took the risk of entering a mysterious tomb and successfully opened a mysterious passage that connected the heaven realm and the mortal realm. The demon clan's rebellion this time was very serious, and Old Tortoise had a hard time dealing with it. This was because the Sky Demon's descendant was behind the rebellion. The Grand Emperor and the Heavenly Demon were mortal enemies. As the Grand Emperor's son, Old Tortoise, and the Sky Demon's descendant were, of course, mortal enemies. The two supreme descendants were fighting for control of the demon clan in the heaven realm. This was a battle that could not be decided in a short period of time. The Sky Demon's descendants' foundation was not inferior to Old Tortoise's. Under such circumstances, it was difficult for Old Tortoise to save He Tian. However, Old Tortoise knew that He Tian would not be killed so easily. However, even Old Tortoise never expected that He Tian would be so heaven-defying as to find a passage that connected the heaven realm and the mortal realm. Of course, this passage was one way. In other words, it was easy to go down to the mortal realm, but difficult to go up. I wonder how Ji Yufei and the others are doing. He Tian stood in the pitch-black starry sky. Very quickly, he discovered a huge planet brimming with life. Then, he flew directly towards it. On the soaring dragon ancestral star, in the East Imperial city of the Tinglong continent, Ji Yufei and his disciple broke into the treasure house and obtained all the treasures inside. This was definitely a super treasure house. Ji Yufei and Ji Yuzhong were overjoyed. The countless treasures made them more confident and gave them the capital to fight against the Dongfang family. It's time to bring the people from overseas back to the Tinglong continent. Ji Yufei uttered such words. It was impossible to destroy the Dongfang family with just the two of them. Only by bringing the army from overseas could they destroy the entire Eastern world. One should know that the Dongfang family was not an ordinary cultivation force. It was a super force that had been passed down for countless years. Just like the immortal mansion of the Central Prefecture, several super forces worked together but failed to destroy this ancient inheritance. If it wasn't for Ji Yufei, the immortal mansion of the Central Prefecture would not have been destroyed. The Dongfang family's foundation was definitely not weaker than the immortal mansion of the Central Prefecture. To destroy the Dongfang family, they needed to think carefully. Otherwise, the Dongfang family would continue to exist even if their ancestral land was destroyed. Master, what should we do? Jiyu Zhong asked Jiyu Fei in the palace of the East Imperial City's governor. With these treasures, we can build a teleportation formation. As long as we can successfully reverse the formation that sent me back to the Tenglong continent, we might be able to return to the overseas. Jiyu Fei pondered for a while and said his idea. Master, isn't this too risky? Jiyu Zhong was startled. Reversing the formation of the teleportation formation was not a small task. If anything went wrong during the process, the consequences would be dire. It should be known that if something went wrong with this kind of super long-distance teleportation formation, they would be sent to an unknown place. At that time, it would not be easy to return. Let's try first. I think we should have 60 to 70% chance of success. Jiyu Fei said. Yes, 60 to 70% chance. We can try. Jiyu Zhong was a little excited. If the overseas army could successfully cross the sea, then it would be much easier to destroy the Dongfang family. It should be known that the overseas force controlled by his master was extremely powerful. Then, Jiyu Fei began to meditate in seclusion to understand the teleportation formation. He wanted to try to reverse the formation of the ancient teleportation formation that sent him back to the Tenglong continent. This was not an easy task. It should be known that the ancient teleportation formation that sent him back to the Tenglong continent had complicated formation patterns. But now, Jiyu Fei and the others could only rely on the overseas force to destroy the Dongfang family. This was something that must be done. If only He Tian was here. Chapter 2557. Where exactly is this place? There was only one planet with life in the endless starry sky. Moreover, when He Tian arrived at this planet, he discovered that there were no powerful cultivators even though the aura of life here was strong. The living beings here only knew simple cultivation methods. Their cultivation bases were not strong. Moreover, there were not many living beings that could cultivate. It was impossible for a teleportation formation to exist on a planet like this. He Tian went around the planet but did not find anything. Therefore, he left the planet and continued to explore the starry sky. The human world was really huge. There were only 5 ancestral planets with life in the endless starry sky. Finding one of them was like finding a needle in a haystack. Other than deciding on a direction and moving forward, He Tian could not think of any other way to find an ancestral planet with life. Of course, He Tian was a sage. Even though his cultivation base was sealed below the sage level due to the existence of the heavenly wrath, his spirit sense was still extremely powerful. He Tian's spirit sense could cover a radius of millions of miles. However, such a range was as small as a grain of sand in the Ganges River compared to the endless starry sky. How am I supposed to do this? He Tian muttered to himself helplessly. He directly used his teleportation technique to traverse the void. His speed was extremely fast. Soon, he disappeared into the pitch-black starry sky. While He Tian was looking for an ancestral planet with life in the endless starry sky, Jiyu Fei was cultivating in seclusion. He was evolving the ancient formation runes in an attempt to reverse the ancient teleportation formation. His train of thought and direction were correct. The teleportation formation could be reversed, but it was not an easy task to reverse the teleportation formation. One must know that the ancient formation runes were very different from the current formation runes. Jiyu Fei had to first master the ancient formation runes before he could attempt to reverse the teleportation formation. At this time, in the void around Jiyu Fei, countless formation runes appeared, condensed and floating in the void, constantly interweaving and combining, forming a mysterious and unfathomable formation diagram. He was reconstructing the ancient diagram. He had memorized the diagram of the ancient teleportation formation that had transported him to the Tenglong continent. However, when he was about to reconstruct the diagram, he realized that it was not an easy task. The ancient diagrams were profound and unfathomable. Most importantly, there were some runes that were difficult to manifest in the void. They were very special, and these runes needed a medium to carry them so that they would not dissipate. In this way, Jiyu Fei had no choice but to utilize some special divine materials. Fortunately, he'd obtained countless divine materials when he breached the treasure reserve pavilion within the East Imperial City's city governor's estate. He carved these runes, which were difficult to condense in the void, onto these special materials, so that these runes could appear. Rumble, the void was shaking, and more formation runes appeared around Jiyu Fei. After continuous transformation, the outline of a great formation appeared. An ancient aura appeared between the heavens and the earth. This was only the rough outline of the ancient diagram, but even so, Jiyu Fei felt that it was very strenuous for him to evolve it to this extent. He knew that he could not stop. Once he did, all his previous efforts would be wasted. He could only continue to evolve the ancient diagram. This was a long process, and he could not finish it in one go. Jiyu Zhong personally guarded the place where Jiyu Fei was cultivating in seclusion. He sat on the ground, motionless like a stone statue. There were only Jiyu Fei and Jiyu Zhong in the enormous city governor's estate. It seemed very empty. The gates of the city governor's estate were wide open, but no one dared to approach. Even mortals did not dare to loiter outside the city governor's estate at this time. What is Jiyu Fei and his disciple doing in there? All the forces had spies outside, paying attention to Jiyu Fei and his disciple's movements. However, the silence inside the city governor's estate made everyone feel that a storm was brewing. The atmosphere inside East Imperial Kingdom was very oppressive. Some cultivation families felt that the situation was not right, and began to arrange for the rising stars of their families to leave East Imperial Kingdom. This was the preparation these cultivation families had made to ensure that their families would continue to exist. The members of the Dongfang family, especially, did not know what Jiyu Fei was planning. The Dongfang family disciples hiding in East Imperial Kingdom all felt very uneasy. Just as all the forces were observing and guessing, one evening, a figure suddenly flew over from the distant sky and landed directly outside the gates of the city governor's estate. Jiyu Fei, come out and die. The incomer shouted into the city governor's estate, his voice spreading far and wide. The spies who were secretly spying on the city governor's estate were all shocked. Was this guy tired of living? He actually dared to challenge Jiyu Fei. One must know that even Dongfang Zun of the Dongfang family died in the hands of Jiyu Fei. Could this guy be even stronger than the city governor of East Imperial Kingdom, Dongfang Zun? It's him. Very quickly, someone recognized the middle-aged man. The person who dared to challenge Jiyu Fei was an expert from the Dongfang family, named Dongfang Ifeng. Dongfang Ifeng's name was like thunder in the ears of the older generation of cultivators. One must know that this expert from the Dongfang family was qualified to compete for the position of master of the Dongfang family in the past. Such an existence was definitely a genius-level existence in that era. However, the current master of the Dongfang family was not Dongfang Ifeng, but the biggest dark horse of the past, Dongfang Chen. Back then, whether it was the Dongfang family or the people from other forces, no one was optimistic about Dongfang Chen. However, things were unpredictable. The person who was the most pessimistic back then had become the current master of the Dongfang family. And the person who was most likely to become the next master of the Dongfang family had become a tragic figure today. If it wasn't for the family's summons, Dongfang Ifeng wouldn't even be able to return to the ancestral land of the Dongfang family. He actually dared to challenge Jiyu Fei. Could it be that he thinks he's stronger than Dongfang Zun? Someone said in shock. One must know that the city governor of East Imperial Kingdom, Dongfang Zun, had already died in a battle at the hands of Jiyu Fei. Is he courting death? Someone was not optimistic about Dongfang Ifeng. However, no matter what, when the other important figures of the Dongfang family chose to endure, Dongfang Ifeng stood out and dared to challenge Jiyu Fei. Everyone could not help but admire Dongfang Ifeng's courage. Jiyu Fei, are you afraid to come out and fight? Dongfang Ifeng's voice was heard once again. This time, all the cultivators in East Imperial Kingdom heard his voice and were extremely shocked. However, to everyone's surprise, there was no response from the city governor. Neither Jiyu Fei nor Jiyu Zhong stepped out to accept the challenge. What's going on? Everyone who was observing the situation was surprised. One must know that Jiyu Fei and his disciple were extremely powerful. Those who dared to challenge them all ended up in a miserable state. It seems like Jiyu Fei is also a coward. Dongfang Ifeng said coldly outside the city governor's mansion. There was still no response from the city governor's mansion. It seemed like Ji Yufei and his disciple did not want to pay any attention to Dongfang Ifeng. Haha, since you're a coward, I'll beat your head out. As Dongfang Ifeng said that, he took a step forward and walked into the city governor's mansion. The moment Dongfang Ifeng's foot stepped through the door, Ji Yuzhong, who was sitting cross-legged outside Ji Yufei's seclusion room in the depths of the city lord's mansion, suddenly opened his eyes. 2 streaks of light shot out from his eyes like lightning. He had originally wanted to ignore the guy outside. However, it seemed like he had no choice but to go out and meet this guy. Swoosh! Ji Yuzhong's figure disappeared into thin air. In the next moment, he appeared in front of the city governor's mansion and stared coldly at the middle-aged man who was walking in. Who are you? Are you here to die? Although Ji Yuzhong's voice was calm, it was filled with killing intent. To dare to enter the city governor's mansion, this guy was really bold. Mph, you guys are finally out. Who are you? Are you Ji Yufei or Ji Yuzhong? Dongfang Ifeng stopped and stared coldly at Ji Yuzhong. An incomparably powerful battle intent erupted from his body. His clothes fluttered even though there was no wind, and his long hair danced in the wind. A dead man doesn't have the right to know who I am, Ji Yuzhong said. An incomparably powerful battle intent gushed out from his body. His entire being was like an unsheathed heavenly sword, giving off an extremely powerful sense of oppression. Is that so? A cold smile appeared on Dongfang Ifeng's face. Then, he took a step forward and threw a punch at Ji Yuzhong. The powerful fist energy shook the heavens and earth, causing the void to tremble. Hey! Ji Yuzhong's eyes lit up. This Dongfang Ifeng actually dared to fight him in close combat. Didn't he know that he was a cultivator? At the same time, Ji Yuzhong also threw a punch at Dongfang Ifeng's fist. A layer of golden astral energy immediately appeared on his fist. Bang! The 2 fists collided with a muffled sound. 2 powerful forces collided with each other. A circle of transparent ripples spread from the point where the 2 fists collided. Catcher! The sound of bones breaking was heard as the 2 figures quickly separated. Ji Yuzhong stared at Dongfang Ifeng in shock. To think that this guy's physical body was so powerful. It was really surprising. At this moment, Dongfang Ifeng was enduring the pain from his broken fingers. Blood was dripping from his right fist. Good fella. A cultivator's martial body is indeed as powerful as the legends say. Chapter 2558. The war immortal physique was so powerful that it could go toe-to-toe with sacred items. Dongfang Ifeng had always been very proud of his war immortal physique. It was like a sacred item in human form, capable of unleashing great power with every move. Dongfang Ifeng activated the immortal energy in his body. The cracks on his right fist immediately healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. The martial saint of the Western Sorcererland is indeed quite capable. Again, Dongfang Ifeng's battle intent surged. It had been many years since he had met an opponent who could make his blood boil like this. In his eyes, Ji Yuzhong was not an enemy, but a rare opponent. As he spoke, he took a step forward and threw a punch at Ji Yuzhong with his right fist. There seemed to be divine flames dancing on his fist as flame-shaped runes appeared indistinctly. Huh! Ji Yuzhong could not help but feel surprised when he saw Dongfang Ifeng's punch. This guy imprinted immortal runes into his flesh and bones to refine his body. This method was very similar to the martial arts body tempering method. It should be noted that the martial arts body tempering method was to refine one's body like a sacred item. The sacred item's grade could be increased, and the body could be transformed to become even more powerful. Rumble. When Dongfang Ifeng threw his punch, the sound of wind and thunder came from his body. It was the sound of his qi and blood surging within his body. Ji Yuzhong's expression turned solemn. He also threw a punch. Golden runes appeared on his right fist, and a strange sound similar to thunder came from his body as well. Bam! The 2 fists collided again with a muffled sound. This time, there was no tremor in the air, nor was there any powerful shockwave. It was like a fight between ordinary people. However, both Jiyu Zhong and Dongfang Ifeng had extremely solemn expressions on their faces. Their bodies emitted a divine light that resembled divine flames. Catcher! The sound of bones breaking rang out once more. Cracks appeared on Dongfang Ifeng's fist, as if a delicate porcelain had been smashed apart. Soon, Dongfang Ifeng's entire fist was covered in cracks, and the cracks continued to spread to his forearm. Roar! Dongfang Ifeng let out a ferocious roar and a ball of divine light burst out from his body. It was as if a divine sun had appeared on his body. Boundless fire elemental immortal energy burst out and surged towards his right arm. Traces of fiery light immediately seeped out from the cracks on his forearm. In the next moment, the cracks disappeared as if they had never been there. Humph! Jiyu Zhong could sense an incomparably powerful force coming from his opponent's fist. He had no choice but to shake his arm and release an even more powerful martial body. The martial Dao patterns that were imprinted in his muscles, bones, and flesh radiated with dazzling divine light, and the divine charm of the great Dao surged. What? When Dongfang Ifeng sensed an even more powerful force erupting from his opponent's fist, his expression finally changed. Dongfang Ifeng found it hard to believe. Could it be that the power of a martial body was limitless? Bang! At that moment, the right side of Jiyu Zhong's body shook violently, and an even more powerful force erupted, sending Dongfang Ifeng flying. The sound of bones breaking was heard from Dongfang Ifeng's right arm. Dongfang Ifeng felt as if his entire arm was about to explode, and all the bones in his arm had been shattered by the power that erupted from his opponent's fist. What a powerful physical body! At that moment, Dongfang Ifeng had no choice but to accept reality. His opponent's martial body was much stronger than the war immortal body that he had cultivated. In a contest of physical strength, he had lost. Boom! In the next moment, a ball of dazzling immortal divine light erupted from Dongfang Ifeng's body, and 9 flame-shaped Dao patterns appeared on his body. The laws of the great Dao were awakened, and the sound of bones rubbing against each other could be heard from his right arm. The shattered bones were vibrating, and his arm was rapidly recovering. With a flash of immortal light, Dongfang Ifeng's right arm was completely restored. Use your true strength, or you won't have a chance anymore. Jiyu Zhong stared at Dongfang Ifeng, who was standing in the air opposite him. His gaze turned incomparably sharp, and his battle intent surged like a rainbow. His long hair fluttered without any wind, and a powerful aura erupted from his body, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. This is your true strength. When Dongfang Ifeng saw Jiyu Zhong, who was like a god of war, his pupils involuntarily contracted. He was indescribably shocked. His opponent hadn't even used his full strength just now. Enough with the nonsense. As Jiyu Zhong spoke, he took a step forward, instantly pressing towards Dongfang Ifeng. The entire heavens and earth seemed to be on the verge of collapsing, shaking violently. Kill. Dongfang Ifeng's battle intent was similarly shocking. With a roar, he waved both his hands, and a huge dragon immediately rushed out, pouncing towards Jiyu Zhong. Jiyu Zhong was shocked. His opponent was using a famous divine technique of the immortal path, called the dragon transformation technique. It was an extremely powerful technique that could transform into a true dragon to attack its enemies. The fire dragon only needed to pounce, but it immediately shattered a large area of the void. Divine flames spread out, burning half the sky red. What is that Dongfang Ifeng trying to do? The cultivators who were spectating near the city lord's residence were all shocked when they saw Dongfang Ifeng using the dragon transformation technique. They hurriedly retreated far away. Is this Dongfang Ifeng trying to destroy the city lord's residence? Someone exclaimed. The power of the true dragon divine fire was extremely terrifying. It was a type of divine fire of the great Tao, capable of burning everything in the world to ashes. Even saints would be destroyed in body and soul if they were burned. Heaven-covering palm. Facing Dongfang Ifeng's incomparably ferocious attack, Jiyu Zhong directly struck out with 5 heaven-covering palms. A huge golden palm instantly appeared between the heavens and earth, enveloping a part of the world and suppressing the fire dragon that was pouncing towards him. Rumble, the void trembled as the huge golden palm shook the heavens and earth, directly suppressing the raging fire dragon. As the huge palm descended, The true dragon that was emitting endless true dragon divine fire was instantly shattered into several pieces. The divine technique of the immortal Tao is only SOSO. Ji Yuzhong was incomparably domineering. Step by step, he ascended from the ground to the sky, pressing towards Dongfang Efeng. With every step he took, his aura increased by a notch. At this time, Ji Yuzhong's heaven-covering palm had already destroyed the fire dragon and dissipated in the void. When Ji Yuzhong arrived in front of Dongfang Efeng, his aura caused the heavens and earth to tremble. The void around him cracked into pitch-black spatial cracks, as if the entire world could not contain his powerful martial body. Your martial body has actually reached such a level. Dongfang Efeng looked at Ji Yuzhong in shock. He could not believe that a person's physical body could actually reach such a terrifying level. Ji Yuzhong's display of strength caused Dongfang Efeng to be shocked. Even if the immortal Tao battle body was cultivated to the extreme, it would not be able to reach this level. You're only going to die by coming here. Ji Yuzhong looked at Dongfang Efeng and said. He was very confident that even an ancient saint like Dongfang Efeng would not be a match for him. So what if it was an ancient saint? In the face of absolute power, they would still die. Is that so? Dongfang Efeng's voice was cold. He was still fearless because he had already prepared for the worst before coming here. The fact that Ji Yufei and his disciple were able to defeat Dongfang Zun was enough to prove how strong they were. Dongfang Zun was also an ancient saint. Moreover, he had achieved his Tao much earlier than Dongfang Efeng. There were only a few saints in the entire Eastern world. Dongfang Zun's death was definitely a great loss to the Dongfang family. And now, if Dongfang Efeng were to die as well, the Dongfang family would not have many saints left. When the power of heaven's wrath was still present, the intimidation effect of a saint wasn't too obvious. Once the power of heaven's wrath disappeared, the saints would regain their cultivation base. At that time, the intimidation effect of a saint would be revealed. Swish. All of a sudden, a Tao diagram flew out from Dongfang Efeng's body. It was a heaven-shaking diagram, with an endless amount of power of the immortal Tao gushing out, displaying a terrifying might capable of suppressing the heavens. The moment the Tao diagram appeared, Ji Yuzhong felt his body sink. It was as if an ancient divine mountain was pressing down on him. Ji Yuzhong was shocked. This Tao diagram was extraordinary. It actually emitted a heaven-suppressing force similar to the one emitted by the mountain and river cauldron. Haha, it's still uncertain who will be the one to kill who. Dongfang Efeng laughed. Since he dared to come here, he must have prepared for everything. This Tao diagram was an ancestral weapon of the Dongfang family. Open for me! Ji Yuzhong furiously roared as power erupted from his body, forcefully pushing away the suffocating pressure that was pressing down on him. After that, he sent a punch rumbling upwards. Boom! A loud bang rang out. Ji Yuzhong's punch directly landed on the Tao diagram. BZZ. The Tao diagram trembled and produced a supreme devouring force. In an instant, Ji Yuzhong was sucked into the sky-shaking Tao diagram. This caused Ji Yuzhong to be shocked. What? Ji Yuzhong felt the world spinning around him. In the next instant, he discovered that he had entered an unfamiliar place. There were mountains and forests around him, but the sky was grey. This place is... Ji Yuzhong was incomparably shocked. He finally understood that he had been sucked into the world within the Tao diagram. A world was nurtured within the Tao diagram. This was something Ji Yuzhong had never imagined. Therefore, Ji Yuzhong fell for it and was sucked into the world within the Tao diagram. Haha, after I kill you, I'll go find your master. Dongfang Efeng's voice came from all directions. No one could pinpoint his exact location. What a joke. You think you can kill me with such a method? Chapter 2559. Dongfang Efeng wasn't Ji Yuzhong's opponent, so he could only use his final trump card. He used the sky-shaking Tao diagram to trap Ji Yuzhong within it. He wanted to use the Tao diagram's power to obliterate Ji Yuzhong. This time, when Dongfang Efeng left the Dongfang family's ancestral land, he brought along the sky-shaking Tao diagram of the Dongfang family. This was an incomparably powerful Tao treasure left behind by one of the Dongfang family's ancestors. Rumble, at this time, Dongfang Ifeng used all his strength to activate the sky-shaking Tao diagram. The cage of heaven and earth that was formed from the sky-shaking Tao diagram immediately shook. A destructive force appeared in this part of the world and rushed towards Ji Yuzhong. This destructive force was extremely powerful. The void was collapsing and chaotic qi seeped out from the cracks in the void. Ji Yuzhong was standing on top of a mountain. He raised his head and saw the dense spatial cracks in the sky. His heart couldn't help but tremble. He felt threatened. Buzz. An extremely powerful force descended from the sky, causing the void to tremble. Ripples spread out from the sky like transparent water waves. Bang! The mountain below Ji Yuzhong's feet suddenly collapsed. His entire body was instantly locked down by a force and floated in the void. He was inside the sky-shaking Tao diagram and couldn't avoid it at all. The powerful force coming from all directions made it hard for him to breathe. The bones in his body emitted cracking sounds. What a powerful suppressive force! Ji Yuzhong felt as if his body was being crushed by an ancient divine mountain. If it wasn't for his powerful martial body, an ordinary saint would have long been crushed. Ji Yuzhong's gaze turned sharp. He directly sat down in the void and activated his mysterious art. A layer of golden light immediately appeared from his body. 9 Tao patterns appeared faintly within the golden light. He directly activated the power of the Grand Tao. While sealing his body, he also blocked the power of the sky-shaking Tao diagram. Outside the heaven-shaking Tao diagram, Dongfang Ifeng, who was sitting cross-legged in the air above the Tao diagram, was incomparably shocked. Even the heaven-shaking Tao diagram was unable to kill this fellow. Dongfang Ifeng's entire body shimmered with a divine immortal light. He waved his hands, sending runes after runes onto the heaven-shaking Tao diagram. He wanted to unleash the full power of this ancient Tao diagram. However, with Dongfang Ifeng's cultivation, it was difficult for him to fully unleash the might of the ancient Tao diagram. Buzz. Just as Dongfang Ifeng was activating the ancient Tao diagram with all of his strength, the world within the Tao diagram began to tremble and then collapse. The heavens fell and the earth cracked apart as vast chaotic energy surged outwards. Within this ancient Tao diagram, the heavens and earth returned to chaos, displaying an extremely terrifying might. Ji Yuzhong was immediately submerged in chaos energy. Amidst the chaotic aura, an indestructible golden body floated up and down. 9 golden runes emitted an indestructible divine light and sealed the golden body. No matter how turbulent and mighty the chaotic aura outside was, it was still unable to destroy this golden body. Ji Yuzhong was trapped. Although his life wasn't in danger, he was trapped within the primal chaos. It wouldn't be an easy task for him to escape. Very well, I'll slowly exhaust you to death. Outside the heaven-shaking Tao diagram, Dongfang Ifeng's expression turned incomparably solemn when he sensed the changes within the Tao diagram. His opponent was much more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. The Tao diagram trembled as runes intertwined on its surface, emitting an incomparably powerful aura. Essence energy from all directions was drawn over and entered the Tao diagram. The might of the Tao diagram grew even more powerful. At this moment, everyone who was watching the battle from afar was stunned. No one would have thought that this would be the result. Dongfang Ifeng had actually brought a supreme treasure from the Dongfang family with him. At the most crucial moment, he had summoned this treasure and sucked Ji Yuzhong into it. To the cultivation families of the Eastern Imperial Kingdom, this supreme treasure wasn't some sort of secret treasure. The Tao diagram that had sucked Ji Yuzhong into it emitted a terrifying might that could suppress the entire world. He actually brought this ancestral treasure out from the ancestral land. There were disciples of the Dongfang family hiding in the Eastern Imperial Kingdom. When they saw the scene in the sky above the city lord's palace, they were all extremely shocked. Hurry up and send this news back to the ancestral land. This Dongfang Ifeng is far too audacious. A disciple of the Dongfang family said. Dongfang Ifeng's relationship with the Dongfang family wasn't that great. Many disciples of the Dongfang family were very dissatisfied with his unruly behavior. Soon, the news was sent back to the ancestral land of the Dongfang family. That guy actually, The higher-ups of the Dongfang family were all enraged. One should know that the ancestral Dao diagram was extremely important and could not be lost. If they lost the Dao diagram, the consequences would be unimaginable. He's truly out of control. This Dongfang Ifeng simply doesn't put the rules of our family in his eyes. A higher-up of the Dongfang family said angrily. This time, he's really gone too far. Someone nodded and said. But he still sucked Ji Yuzhong into the heaven-shaking Dao diagram. At the top of the Great Hall, a young man suddenly spoke up. Even though he had a youthful appearance, everyone who could appear in the Great Hall of the Dongfang family was a very important person in the Dongfang family. This young man was actually an old antique. Although he wasn't an ancient saint, he wasn't far from it. Some people could cultivate their entire lives and still not necessarily become a saint. However, there were also people who could become a saint after cultivating for a short period of time. Whether one could become a saint or not was actually restricted by many factors. This was related to one's encounters during one's growth. PH. So what if he can kill Ji Yuzhong? You should know that the one behind Ji Yuzhong is the real person we need to deal with. Someone said unhappily. Alright, there's no need to say anymore. Since it's already happened, let's just wait and see. Dongfang Chen, who was sitting on the throne in the main hall, spoke. He swept his gaze over everyone in the main hall with a terrifyingly gloomy expression. Patriarch, how can we just wait and see? The young man said with some surprise. He couldn't accept Dongfang Chen's decision. Since Dongfang Ifeng had already suppressed Ji Yuzhong in the heaven-shaking Dao diagram, they should be helping Dongfang Ifeng. Could it be that you want to help that madman? A white-haired middle-aged man said coldly to the young man. Yes, I want to help him. So what? The young man looked at the middle-aged man and said expressionlessly. If you want to go, then go by yourself. Another person stood up. You guys. Chapter 2560. Dongfang Xian was a sage-to-be from the Dongfang clan. This sage-to-be wasn't an ordinary one, but an ancient sage-to-be. In ancient times, he had already reached the sage-to-be realm. However, after countless years, he was still a sage-to-be, unable to take that final step. Even when the chaotic world appeared, he couldn't trigger a saint's heavenly tribulation in the chaotic world and become a saint. Although he wasn't a saint, Dongfang Xian's status in the Dongfang clan wasn't low. He was an elder of the Dongfang clan. Dongfang Xian and Dongfang Ifeng had a good relationship. In fact, Dongfang Xian and Dongfang Ifeng were cousins. In the Dongfang clan, Dongfang Xian was the only person Dongfang Ifeng had a say in. When he found out that Dongfang Ifeng had sucked Ji Yuzhong into the sky-shaking Dao diagram, Dongfang Xian felt uneasy. He felt that things weren't that simple. However, the elders of the Dongfang clan weren't happy with Dongfang Ifeng and wouldn't help him. Dongfang Xian could only go to the Eastern Imperial City by himself. Rumble, at this moment, inside the sky-shaking Dao diagram, the primordial chaos was vast and mighty. It was as if a chaotic world was being nurtured. The power of destruction was wreaking havoc. Nothing could be preserved. In this chaotic world, a golden figure sat cross-legged in the void, floating in the primordial chi. 9 golden Dao runes appeared on this figure and branded themselves on his body, emitting an immortal aura of the great Dao. No matter how turbulent the primordial chi outside was, it couldn't shake this figure. This person was Ji Yuzhong. His eyes were closed, and golden light flowed all over his body. A powerful aura spread from his body, like a sleeping golden god of war, giving people a great sense of oppression. This guy, after sensing the situation within the sky-shaking Dao diagram, Dongfang Ifeng was shocked to the extreme. This Ji Yuzhong was truly strong. At the very least, he was much stronger than an ordinary saint. He was actually able to last until now without being destroyed by the sky-shaking Dao diagram. Rumble, Ji Yuzhong suddenly opened his eyes. He stretched out his right hand and a divine spear immediately appeared in his hand. Thunderous sounds came from the divine spear in his hand. On the body of the divine spear, streaks of lightning could be seen. Dao runes in the shape of lightning appeared inside the spear, emitting the aura of the great Dao. Humph! Ji Yuzhong stood up from the void. He held the divine spear in his hand and stabbed upwards. A dazzling bolt of lightning shot out from the divine spear and shattered the void. However, this incomparably sharp attack was unable to truly break through the primal chaos void that had appeared within the heaven-shaking Tao diagram. Yes. Ji Yuzhong was shocked to see that his saint artifact was unable to break through the void. It had to be known that this divine spear had a great origin. It was a great saint artifact. Boom. Ji Yuzhong activated the divine spear with all his might. A thunderclap rang out, and the divine spear in his hand turned into a dazzling bolt of lightning. It was as though the strongest lightning Tao pattern in the world was being released in his hand. Shua. The lightning instantly tore through the primal chaos void and directly rushed out from the heaven-shaking Tao diagram. It almost pierced through Dongfang Ifeng, who was sitting cross-legged above the Tao diagram. What? Dongfang Ifeng was shocked. He had never imagined that his opponent would be able to pierce through the heaven-shaking Tao diagram. How is this possible? Dongfang Ifeng was in disbelief. One must know that this Tao diagram was a Tao treasure left behind by the Dongfang family's ancestor. It was an ancestral item of the Dongfang family. Once the Tao diagram appeared, it would seal the entire world. Even a saint would be able to kill it. However, at this moment, not only did Ji Yuzhong not die, he even broke through the seal of the heaven-shaking Tao diagram. He used an incomparably powerful force to pierce through the heaven-shaking Tao diagram. The heaven-shaking Tao diagram trembled. The crack that was created by the bolt of lightning was repairing itself at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, Ji Yuzhong would not miss this opportunity to escape. He soared into the sky and transformed into a ray of golden light. He charged out from the crack on the heaven-shaking Tao diagram. Rumble, blinding bolts of lightning bloomed from his right hand. The powerful lightning energy wreaked havoc. Every single bolt of lightning pierced through the void. This is, Dongfang Ifeng, who had retreated a long time ago, could not help but be shocked when he saw this. He could feel a powerful lightning energy erupting from Ji Yuzhong's hand. Retract. Dongfang Ifeng roared and activated the heaven-shaking Tao diagram with all his strength. Countless Tao runes emerged from the Tao diagram and rushed towards Ji Yuzhong. He wanted to swallow Ji Yuzhong back into the Tao diagram. However, after Ji Yuzhong suffered a loss once, he would not fall into the same pit again. He used the 8 desolate steps and displayed the fastest speed in the world. He instantly dodged the attack. Eat my spear. Ji Yuzhong roared and directly threw out the bolt of lightning in his hand. Boom. With a loud bang, the lightning in Ji Yuzhong's hand blossomed. The extremely powerful lightning energy suddenly exploded. It was like a heavenly punishment was descending and it bombarded towards Dongfang Ifeng. At the moment when Ji Yuzhong threw out the lightning, Dongfang Ifeng felt a great danger enveloping him. The Thunder God's spear in Ji Yuzhong's hand was a great saint weapon that could tear apart the heaven-shaking Tao diagram. If Dongfang Ifeng was hit by the Thunder God's spear, even if he had the war immortal physique, he would still be killed. However, the speed of the lightning was extremely fast. In an instant, it had arrived in front of Dongfang Ifeng. He did not even have the time to dodge and was immediately frightened out of his wits. Just when Dongfang Ifeng thought that he was about to be killed by his opponent, a divine shield suddenly appeared in front of him without any warning and protected him within it. Boom! The powerful lightning struck the divine shield and cracks immediately appeared on it. It seemed as if the shield would shatter at any time. Let's go. A voice came from behind Dongfang Ifeng. Then, Dongfang Ifeng felt his waist tighten and his entire body was pulled away. The person who came smashed out a formation platform and jumped onto it with Dongfang Ifeng. Buzz. A divine light appeared on the formation platform and the person who came and Dongfang Ifeng were directly teleported out of this dangerous place. Preposterous. Seeing that Dongfang Ifeng was rescued by a young man, Ji Yuzhong could not help but be furious. That young man was definitely an expert from the Dongfang family. Chapter 2561. This is preposterous. Ji Yuzhong was both shocked and angered at the sight of a young man begging Dongfang Ifeng to leave. Just who was this guy? It was impossible for Ji Yuzhong to continue his pursuit because the formation platform that the two had used to escape had exploded. The formation inscriptions on the platform had all collapsed. He did not have the ability to reconstruct the teleportation formation inscriptions and continue his pursuit. If he dares to come again, I'll kill him. Ji Yuzhong gripped the thunder god's spear tightly as his eyes flashed like lightning. He scanned his surroundings. Everyone watching from afar was shocked and did not dare to look at him directly. At this moment, the sky-shaking Dao pattern floated in the air and did not fly away. Ji Yuzhong stretched out his hand and directly grabbed the Dao diagram in his hand. Then, he put it away. Although the heaven-shaking Dao diagram had a hole torn open by the lightning god's spear, this Dao diagram had the ability to repair itself. In the future, this Dao diagram would repair itself and become perfect again. Even Dongfang Ifeng is no match for him. It seems that no one in the Dongfang family can defeat Ji Yufei and his disciple. In the Eastern Imperial City, the cultivator clans were in despair. The Dongfang family wanted to take back the Eastern Imperial City from the hands of Ji Yufei and his disciple, but it was not going to be an easy task. Of course, some people did not think this way. One should know that the Dongfang family's foundation was incomparably deep. The fact that they were able to survive in the Eastern Realm for so many years was enough to prove their strength. If the Dongfang family wanted to defeat Ji Yufei and his disciple, their only chance was to use the Dongfang family's ancestral weapon. At this moment, Ji Yuzhong returned to the Eastern Imperial City's governor's palace and continued to guard outside Ji Yufei's seclusion grounds. He then sat down cross-legged and placed the Thunder God's spear across his knees. He closed his eyes and retracted all of his aura. Like a statue, he remained motionless and no one could sense his presence. However, the lightning-like divine spear on his knees emitted a terrifying aura of destruction and lightning-shaped inscriptions could be faintly seen on the spear's body. After this battle, all the cultivators in the Eastern Imperial City once again witnessed Ji Yuzhong's strength. This Ji Yuzhong was simply an undefeatable god of war. Being the enemy of such an existence was definitely everyone's nightmare. At this moment, in Ji Yufei's seclusion grounds, endless array patterns filled up every inch of the void around Ji Yufei. As for what was happening outside, he had no idea at all. At this moment, even if the world outside were to collapse, Ji Yufei would not be able to sense it because his mind was completely focused on how to reverse the ancient teleportation formation. It was easier said than done to reverse the ancient teleportation formation. At this moment, Ji Yufei had only successfully set up the ancient teleportation formation that could transport him back to the Tenglong continent. Successfully setting up this ancient teleportation formation was only the first step towards success. If he couldn't set up this ancient teleportation formation again, then everything would just be a pipe dream. While Ji Yufei was deducing the ancient teleportation formation, He Tian, who had successfully escaped from the heaven realm to the human realm, was still wandering in the endless star field. The star field was boundless. Even an existence like He Tian was like a grain of sand in the Ganges River in the star field. He seemed insignificant. Damn it, when will I be able to return to the ancestral star of the soaring dragon? He Tian continuously complained. He decided on a direction and continued to teleport forward, traversing through the endless starry regions. However, all the starry regions were the same. They were desolate, silent, and without a trace of life. Everything was cold and desolate. Just as He Tian crossed a meteorite belt, he was shocked by the scene that suddenly appeared in front of him. Outside the meteorite belt, there were actually countless bricks and debris floating in the air. Broken stone pillars, shattered stone statues, and exploded palaces. All of these formed a ruin that stretched as far as the eye could see. What's going on? Erebus was extremely shocked. He found it hard to believe that he had come across such a wasteland in the boundless star field. A ruin left behind after a great war? He Tian was not in a hurry to enter the ruin. Instead, he observed carefully. He had always been cautious, which was why he could survive in the heaven realm until now. What's that? Suddenly, Erebus saw a figure disappear from the ruins. This made him wonder if his eyes were playing tricks on him. He couldn't sense any signs of life at all. Buzz. With a thought from He Tian, the void around him vibrated. Runes rushed out of his body and disappeared into the void around him. He was a formation grandmaster. With just a thought, he set up an invisible formation around him, shrouding the void within a radius of 300 meters around him. After doing all that, He Tian walked into the ruin and disappeared. The atmosphere on the soaring dragon ancestral star became a little strange. As the power of heaven's wrath continued to weaken, some old antiques who had been enduring for countless years could no longer sit still. Strange auras came from some of the forbidden and dangerous places on the soaring dragon continent, as if terrifying existences were awakening from their slumber. At this moment, even ordinary cultivators knew that the power of heaven's wrath that had existed for countless years was about to disappear. Ordinary cultivators had no idea what it meant when the power of heaven's wrath disappeared, but to the old antiques, once the shackles that had been restraining them were removed, they would be able to move freely in the world again. They would no longer have to suffer like this. When the power of heaven's wrath disappears, it will be the death of Ji Yufei and his disciple. In the ancestral grounds of the Dongfang family, a figure stood on a mountain peak and looked into the depths of the sky. He then said these words. "Master," at this moment, a figure appeared on the mountain peak without a sound. "Is that guy dead yet?" Dongfang Chen's voice was emotionless. "He was saved by Dongfang Xian." The person quickly said. "Dongfang Xian," Dongfang Chen muttered to himself. His eyes flickered with a bright light. No one knew what he was thinking, not even his confidants. A storm was brewing in the Tenglong continent, but the Divine Ocean was relatively peaceful, as the overseas factions were all under Ji Yufei's control. Ji Yufei and Yang Er lived a peaceful and simple life in the ancestral land of the Demon Clan on the Falling Star continent, one of the 3 continents of the God-fallen sea. The indestructible combat body had returned to the Tenglong continent, but Ji Yufei's true form remained in the Falling Star continent. He was waiting for the indestructible combat body to open a path between the Falling Star continent and the Tenglong continent. When that time came, he would be able to return to the Tenglong continent with his subordinates. Perhaps he could even attack the ancestral ground of the Dongfang clan. Chapter 2562. A storm was brewing. The power of heaven's wrath was about to disappear. The world was about to change. All the major forces were preparing, especially the ancient desolate land forces. They knew many secrets of the world and had been preparing for this since a long time ago. At this moment, the fallen god ocean was relatively peaceful because the 3 continents were under Ji Yufei's control. The 3 overseas Saint Venerables were all subdued by him. The overseas forces were not weaker than the ancient desolate land forces. Ji Yufei's real body was waiting and his subordinates were ready. Once the time came, they would come to the Tenglong continent in their strongest form. At that time, the entire Tenglong continent would change. The overseas forces would have to establish a foothold here if they wanted to enter the Tenglong continent. This would affect the interests of many forces. Conflicts were unavoidable. Ji Yufei's real body had already thought of everything. He would take the Dongfang clan's territory and uproot them. He would end this conflict with the destruction of the Dongfang clan. Although the wait wasn't long, it was enough to make everyone restless, especially Ji Yufei's subordinates. They were rubbing their fists and rubbing their palms. They couldn't wait to charge into the Tenglong continent. Rumble, on this day, an ancient cauldron was floating in the ancestral land of the Demon Clan in the Starfall continent. Dark clouds of doom loomed over the ancestral land of the Demon Clan. Bolts of lightning struck down from the clouds and struck the ancient cauldron. Buzz. The ancient cauldron trembled under the bombardment of the tribulation lightning. Primordial chaos chi circled around the cauldron, emitting an ancient aura. This was the primordial chaos chi. It was the most mysterious and ancient chi in the 3 realms and 6 paths. According to legend, the world had evolved from this chi. One strand of this chi could suppress mountains and rivers. The primordial chaos chi stabilized a part of the sky. Extremely powerful tribulation lightning struck down from the sky and struck the cauldron of mountain and river. However, no matter how powerful the tribulation lightning was, it couldn't shatter the space where the cauldron of mountain and river was. Someone was undergoing tribulation in the cauldron of mountain and river. The powerful tribulation lightning shook the world. A crimson dragon was roaring in the cauldron of mountain and river. The dragon's roar shook the world inside. Roar! The crimson dragon opened its mouth and inhaled, actually swallowing the tribulation lightning that filled the sky into its stomach, and then directly refining it into its own essence energy to replenish the essence energy it had lost. If someone saw this scene, their eyeballs would definitely pop out. This was tribulation lightning. There was actually a creature that dared to directly swallow this type of destructive power into its body. However, the crimson dragon did it. Streaks of lightning circulated around the scarlet dragon's body, which was as huge as a mountain ridge. Not only did it devour the tribulation lightning, but it also used the tribulation lightning to temper its body. Such boldness was not something that all living beings possessed. The so-called saint-level heavenly tribulation doesn't seem all that impressive. The crimson dragon's fighting spirit soared. Runes appeared indistinctly all over his body. Those were streaks of dragon-shaped Tao patterns. The power of the true dragon bloodline in his body had already completely awakened. The great Tao went from complex to simple. The countless runes on the crimson dragon's body were constantly changing. The seemingly endless runes gradually decreased until only 9 blurry dragon-shaped runes were left. This was the sign of becoming a saint. The crimson dragon was attacking the saint level. He was finally going to take that step. He was going to become a holy dragon and soar into the heavens. Rumble, the most powerful tribulation lightning, became stronger and stronger, as if it wanted to completely shatter the world inside the cauldron of mountain and river. When the tribulation lightning struck down, a pitch-black spatial crack would be left in the void. The crimson dragon bathed in the lightning. He enjoyed the feeling of the tribulation lightning tempering his body. This level of tribulation lightning could not harm him at all. A divine aura began to appear on the crimson dragon's body. At the same time, a faint sound of thunder came from the depths of the sky. Although the sound was soft, it made the crimson dragon shudder. Is it finally coming? The crimson dragon found it difficult to remain calm. This was a sign that the power of heaven's wrath was about to descend. The moment he became a saint, he would be killed by the power of heaven's wrath. Of course, this was the consequence of undergoing the tribulation outside the cauldron of mountain and river. Inside the cauldron of mountain and river, even the power of heaven's wrath could not enter and wreak havoc inside. Even though he knew this, the crimson dragon was still extremely nervous. He looked into the depths of the sky and his aura was raised to the extreme. The entire void seemed like it was about to shatter. However, although the power of heaven's wrath had descended, it was blocked outside by the power of the cauldron of mountain and river. It could not enter the world inside the cauldron of mountain and river. The crimson dragon breathed a sigh of relief. Otherwise, he would have suffered a tragedy. At this time, all the cultivators in the ancestral grounds of the demonic race were watching from afar. The commotion caused by the crimson dragon's tribulation was not small. Almost all the reputable people in the Endless Sea region had come. As Ji Yufei's disciple, the crimson dragon actually had the cultivation and strength to break through to the saint level a long time ago. However, he had been suppressing his cultivation and did not trigger the tribulation. The crimson dragon's foundation of the Great Path was very sturdy, and his physical body was extremely powerful, which was why he seemed so relaxed when undergoing the tribulation. However, the 9 stages of the tribulation were not that easy to make it through. In the following period of time, the crimson dragon was finally injured. The power of the tribulation had almost obliterated his soul, turning him into a soulless walking corpse. However, he made it through. The 9 patterns gradually became clear. The divine aura was vast, and every rune was releasing an endless aura of the Great Path. Boom! After some time, a loud rumble was heard. The crimson dragon's entire body seemed like it was about to burn. The fiery dragon-shaped patterns finally took shape, and true divine aura appeared in the world. The cultivators who were watching Ji Yuzhong's tribulation from afar all looked at the cauldron of mountain and river in shock. A dragon's roar was heard from the cauldron of mountain and river, reverberating in the world. He actually succeeded, someone said something like that. The crimson dragon had succeeded. The tribulation clouds in the sky gradually dispersed, But the power of heaven's wrath that was descending from the depths of the sky remained and did not retreat. The Crimson Dragon then used the 9 patterns to suppress his cultivation of the saint level. As such, the power of heaven's wrath immediately lost its target and retreated. The Crimson Dragon charged out of the cauldron of mountain and river. At this time, he had already become a holy dragon, and his entire body was surrounded by the aura of the Great Path. Roar! The Crimson Dragon roared at the sky. The huge dragon's body was changing, and a figure appeared in the world. It was a middle-aged man surrounded by flames. The middle-aged man's appearance was changing rapidly. He began to become younger. Eventually, a handsome young man with long crimson hair appeared. Chapter 2563. Red Dragon became a martial sage. He was the second disciple of Jiyu Fei to become a martial sage. After becoming a martial sage, Red Dragon's aura was obviously different. His sharp aura had been completely retracted. This was a phenomenon of returning to one's natural state. Congratulations, senior brother. Congratulations, brother. The group of powerful beings who were watching the Scarlet Dragon's tribulation from afar rushed over and congratulated the Scarlet Dragon. One must know that a saint dragon was definitely stronger than any ordinary saint. This was the advantage of a race. Of course, this advantage was non-existent in front of Jiyu Fei. Even carnate lifeforms were not as strong as Jiyu Fei, let alone the dragon tribe. At this time, Red Dragon knelt in the direction of Jiyu Fei. After bowing, he accepted the congratulations from the crowd. Jiyu Fei did not come out. He lived in seclusion in the depths of the ancestral grounds of the demon race. It was difficult for outsiders to see him. Even if someone came to visit, he would not meet them. You didn't make the wrong choice as a disciple. In a pavilion in the depths of the ancestral grounds of the demon race, a fairy in white smiled and said to a young man in black. There was a saucer in front of them. A faint fragrance of tea lingered in the pavilion. There was a teacup in front of them that had steam wafting from it. Those with poor temperament and conduct are not worthy of being my disciples. Jiyu Fei picked up the cup in front of him, took a sip, and said, Both of your disciples have become martial sages. Yaoyue's cultivation is a little weaker, but she will definitely become a martial sage. I wonder who will become a martial sage first, Yaoyu or our baby. Yang said. She yearned for such a peaceful life, but she also knew that such a peaceful life would not last long. At her level of cultivation, she could naturally sense the subtle changes in the world. A great change that would sweep across the 3 realms and 6 Dao was about to happen. No cultivator could avoid being swept into it. Linga has our bloodline. Maybe she will become a martial sage before Yaoyu does. Jiyu Fei said. Yang nodded and stopped talking. She slowly sipped her tea. At this time, the ancestral land of the demon clan was very lively. Lanterns and streamers were hung everywhere. All the powerful clans of the Falling Stars continent had sent messengers to congratulate them. A crimson dragon becoming a sage was no small feat. In the following 3 days, the people of the Clear Moon continent and the Purple Sun continent came too. No one dared to be negligent when Jiyu Fei's disciple became a martial sacred. The unaging demon child, the South Heaven hierarch, and the Purple Sun heavenly monarch all came. This was especially so for the unold demon child and the others. They used the Crimson Dragon's ascension as an opportunity to congratulate and pay their respects to the Crimson Dragon's master, Jiyu Fei. Since the 3 holy venerates came, Jiyu Fei had to meet them. The unold demon child and the others entered the depths of the demon race's ancestral ground. Several hours later, they came out with grave expressions. After congratulating the Crimson Dragon, the unold demon child and the other 2 Saint Venerables directly left. The Purple Sun heavenly monarch naturally returned to the Purple Sun continent. The South Heaven hierarch was still the ruler of the Clear Moon continent, overseeing it. The unold demon child, on the other hand, had become a loner and had been wandering around for years. The change is not far away. Before the unold demon child left the demon race's ancestral ground, he turned around and took a look at the demon race's ancestral ground before drifting away. At this time, all the sages in the 3 realms and 6 Daos had a premonition that the change was not far away. Some of the old antiques who had lived for countless years naturally knew this saying. The change of the world was about to happen, but no one knew what would happen when the time came. While the Crimson Dragon was becoming a martial sacred, in the East Imperial city of the Tinglong continent, Ji Yuzhong was like a stone statue guarding outside the place where Ji Yufei was cultivating in seclusion. Over the past few days, more and more spies from various forces had gathered outside the East Imperial city. These forces were not only from the East Imperial city, but there were also forces from outside the East Imperial city. Especially the people from the archaic Dao sect. Ever since the Great Heaven Saint Emperor had been defeated, the spies from the archaic Dao sect had set their eyes on the East Imperial City's City Lord office. They were paying close attention to the movements of Ji Yufei and his disciple in the City Lord office. The Great Heaven Saint Emperor was a big shot in the archaic Dao sect. His great-great-grandson had been killed by Ji Yuzhong. Such a great hatred naturally had to be avenged. However, even the powerful archaic Dao sect was afraid of Ji Yufei and his disciple. They did not dare to attack them recklessly. The people from the Dongfang family were observing the situation quietly. They did not send any experts to cause trouble for Ji Yufei and his disciple. After Dongfang Yifeng had been defeated, the people from the Dongfang family did not dare to appear again. No one wanted to die. The family leader of the Dongfang family, Dongfang Chen, knew very well that it was definitely not an easy task to get rid of Ji Yufei and his disciple. At this time, he could not use the ancestral weapon. Furthermore, Ji Yufei had an supreme saint weapon. Even if he used the ancestral weapon, no one knew if he could kill Ji Yufei and his disciple. Dongfang Chen could not take the risk. The Dongfang family's ancestral weapon could not be lost. This was because an old antique of the Dongfang family who had been asleep for countless years was about to awaken. Once the old ancestor awakened from his slumber, no matter how strong the ultimate martial body was, no one would be a match for the old ancestor. Ji Yufei's real body was waiting on the Falling Star continent, and the Dongfang family was also waiting. Rumble. At this time, there was a rumbling sound in the place where Ji Yufei was cultivating in seclusion. In his secret room, countless runes filled every inch of the void. These runes all emitted an immortal light of the way. They constantly intertwined and recombined, evolving into a vast number of formation runes. Even Ji Yufei felt extremely strained. Ji Yufei, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, was surrounded by golden divine light. 9 dazzling golden runes of the way appeared on his body and branded themselves onto his body. Boom! At this time, there was a muffled sound like thunder. A corner of the formation runes that Ji Yufei was controlling suddenly collapsed and the runes dissipated into the void. Ji Yufei's body swayed and a trace of blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. Failed again. Ji Yufei reached out and wiped the trace of blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were still extremely determined. Reversing the ancient teleportation formation required too much effort and energy. It made him feel physically and mentally exhausted. He continued to evolve the formation runes. Soon, the collapsed corner of the formation reappeared and protected the formation. At this time, Array Grandmaster He Tian entered a ruin in the starry sky. This was the ruins of the Archean battlefield. Of course, the battle there was extremely intense and everything was destroyed. In the dark and cold void, there were countless fragments floating. Among them, there were fragments of weapons and magic treasures that had long lost their divinity. One could even see dried corpses in these ruins. Countless years had passed and the corpses did not melt. This was enough to show how powerful and terrifying these corpses were when they were alive. However, they had fallen here. As He Tian walked, he could not help but be shocked to the extreme. This Archean battlefield was not simple. He could even feel the terrifying aura of destruction coming from several places in the depths of the ruins. It was not the aura of living beings. It was not even the aura that could be produced by living beings. It was the power of the formation. In this battlefield, there were half-destroyed killing formations that were still in operation. If one was careless and entered these killing formations, they would be in big trouble. Of course, He Tian was a Array Grandmaster. These terrifying remnant formations might be a great threat to others, but they were nothing to him. What is that? At this time, He Tian suddenly saw a black shadow flash across the ruins on the right. When he wanted to see it clearly, the mysterious figure had already disappeared. He Tian could not help but feel a chill in his heart. He still could not sense any life aura, not even the unique death aura of the undead. What is that? It can't be the legendary undying evil intent, right? Thinking of this, He Tian couldn't help but shiver. This kind of existence was the most terrifying thing in the world. In the past, the palace of deities on the moon deities became a famous ominous land in the heavenly realm because of this evil intent. He Tian couldn't help but speed up. He did not know if it was a blessing or a curse to enter these ruins. His figure disappeared into the depths of the ruins as he crossed over. The ancient crepe myrtle star was one of the 5 ancestral stars of the human realm. According to legend, an invincible sovereign once appeared on this ancient star in the distant past. Supreme Crepe Myrtle was definitely one of the most outstanding sovereigns since ancient times. In a mountain range to the south of the ancestral Crepe Myrtle star, a great battle was taking place. Violet Qi spread for 30,000 miles. It was a battle between a godlike young man and another young man. Ji Changkong, when are you waiting for your death? A purple-haired young man shouted. His voice reverberated in the mountains and spread far away. Purple patterns of the way rushed out from the young man's body, faintly discernible in the void, emanating a powerful aura of the Great Path. "Ha, Ji Xiang, you want to kill me? Are you qualified?" said Ji Changkong with a laugh. "Bzzz." As he spoke, he waved his hands. Purple blades of light rushed out of his hands and slashed towards the purple-haired young man. Every purple blade of light contained a purple Dao rune. These were blades of light formed from the power of the great Dao. They could cut through the void. "You said I'm not qualified to kill you?" The young man named Ji Xiang was instantly enraged. He was a genius of the Ji clan and had always been arrogant. He believed that he was not weaker than others. His entire body was glowing as if he had turned into a purple sun. The blades of light of the great Dao that slashed down actually dissipated in the void under the illumination of the purple divine Sunday Mph. You do have some ability. Chapter 2564. Ji Changkong was incomparably powerful. He unleashed a great technique, wanting to devour the divine sun that Ji Xiang had transformed into. Rumble. The entire world was shaking. The aura of the great Dao was vast and mighty. The entire mountain range seemed like it was going to collapse. Cracks appeared on the mountain range and countless rocks rolled down from the mountains. All the living beings in the region were terrified. It was like the end of the world had arrived. Boom! With a loud sound, the purple sun in the sky suddenly exploded. The destructive power shook the heavens and the earth, creating a huge hole in the sky. Chaotic chi lingered in the hole. At the same time, a figure vomited blood and retreated. He directly rushed into the hole and disappeared into the chaotic void. A cold snort was heard. An incomparably huge whirlpool appeared in the sky, devouring all the destructive power that was spreading in all directions. After that, a figure appeared in the sky. This person was Ji Changkong. He had forced Ji Xiang to flee. He and Ji Xiang were both from the Ji clan. His status was 1 generation higher than Ji Xiang's. However, Ji Xiang was the current clan leader's man. Ever since he knew that Ji Changkong was still alive, the clan leader of the Ji clan kept sending his trusted subordinates to get rid of Ji Changkong. However, Ji Changkong was no longer the Ji Changkong of the past. Ji Changkong's cultivation kept increasing while he was dealing with the clan leader's trusted subordinates. "It's time to go somewhere and try my luck." Ji Changkong stood in the void. Purple chi surged from his body. 9 purple Dao runes appeared on his body, emitting the aura of the great Dao. Swoosh! Ji Changkong's figure disappeared in the void. Not long after Ji Changkong left, a few incomparably powerful auras rushed over from afar. The person in the lead was an old man with white hair and a dragon headstaff in his hand. "Where is the traitor?" An aged voice resounded and spread far. The dragon headstaff in the old man's hand had faint Dao runes on it. It was a powerful divine tool. Did Xiang lose? Behind the old man, a green-clothed middle-aged man looked at the destroyed mountain range and said in shock, "That traitor is actually so powerful." Another grey-clothed middle-aged man said in disbelief, "Preposterous." The old man was shocked and angry at the same time. Then, he directly executed a great technique and replayed the battle between Ji Changkong and Ji Xiang. The scenes of the battle replayed. The final scene was of Ji Changkong leaving. Ziyang really lost to that traitor. The two middle-aged men were a little dumbfounded. One should know that Ji Xiang was a publicly recognized genius in the Ji clan. His cultivation was extremely powerful and even some of the older generation experts were not his match. That traitor should have gone there. The grey-robed middle-aged man suddenly said. Does he want to undergo tribulation? The green-clothed middle-aged man seemed to have thought of something. He glanced at the grey-clothed middle-aged man and said in shock, "Even if that traitor escapes to the ends of the earth, I will still kill him." After saying that, the old man left with the two middle-aged men and headed towards that place. While Ji Changkong was causing huge waves on the Myrtle ancestral star, He Tian was still traversing through the ruins floating in the starry sky. He suddenly realized that there was a huge bronze warship floating in front of him. The huge warship was thousands of meters long and looked like a small mountain. It was floating towards him. There was a huge hole on the body of the bronze warship. It was the imprint of a hand. The warship had been pierced by a palm. The person who did it was definitely a peerless expert. It should be known that ordinary people could not destroy a bronze warship of this level. This kind of warship was a terrifying battle tool that only a few superfactions could possess. He Tian was very careful. He was not in a hurry to board the warship. Instead, he carefully observed the warship from the outside. There was no aura of life in the warship. Looking through the palm-shaped hole, he could see some corpses floating inside. Buzz. The void around He Tian was vibrating. Formation runes were faintly discernible. The formation runes enveloped the void of 100 meters around him. Anything that entered the range of his formation would be instantly detected by him. After hesitating for a while, He Tian decided to board the warship. It should be known that there was a teleportation formation on a warship of this level. As long as he found the teleportation formation, he would be able to return to the ancestral star. This was the reason why He Tian took the risk to enter the unknown ruins. He wanted to find the teleportation formation or something else that could help him return to the ancestral star. There were only 5 ancestral stars in the entire human realm. Moreover, these 5 ancestral stars were scattered across the boundless star region. It was almost impossible to find one ancestral star after losing one's way. As the formation runes shrouded the warship, all the movements in the warship appeared in He Tian's mind. There were many corpses floating in the warship. It was obvious that the peerless expert who attacked the bronze warship had killed all the cultivators on the warship with a single palm strike. Even Erebus, who had already become a saint, felt his heart palpitate at this level of battle prowess. It must be known that he could tell from the formation patterns on this warship that this was a saint-grade warship. The person who could break a saint-class warship with a single palm strike was at least a saint ruler, saint emperor, or even a saint venerable. Just as Erebus had expected, he found a formation platform in the middle of the ancient battleship. However, the formation platform had already collapsed, but the runes on it had not been destroyed. If it was someone else, they would not be able to use the broken formation platform. However, who was He Tian? He was a formation grandmaster. To He Tian, repairing the formation platform was not a difficult task. After carefully observing the formation platform, He Tian began to repair it. He had collected a lot of divine materials and this was the right time to use them. A few hours later, the cracked formation platform was repaired by He Tian. Rays of divine light flowed on the formation platform. After injecting spiritual qi into the formation platform, the runes on the inside of the formation platform immediately lit up. It's a formation platform that teleports to that place. Soon, He Tian was shocked. This formation platform was actually a formation platform built by a great sect from one of the 5 ancestral planets, the celestial Myrtle star. What happened in the past? He Tian was very curious. A warship from the celestial Myrtle Star actually appeared here. Could it be that the great sect from the celestial Myrtle Star was fighting against other forces in the starry sky? Forget it. Who cares what happened in the past? I'll leave this damned place first. He Tian did not hesitate and immediately activated the formation platform. The moment he activated the array, he suddenly felt something approaching the ancient battleship at a rapid speed. This startled him. There was indeed something unknown hidden in the ruins. Whoosh! At this moment, the void above the formation platform suddenly trembled. He Tian's figure then disappeared from the formation platform. He had escaped right away. Roar! Just as my Tian was about to escape, a roar rang out from outside the ancient battleship. A huge figure appeared outside the ancient battleship. Boom! The huge black figure slammed down with its palm and the entire ancient warship immediately collapsed. Even the ancient formation platform that He Tian repaired was shattered into millions of pieces. At the same time, in the depths of the celestial Myrtle Star, an ancient formation platform that had been sealed for countless years suddenly emitted waves of energy. Soaring Dragon Ancestral Star, Eastern Domain, East Royal City, Gu Fei's seclusion ground. Rumble, powerful energy waves came from Gu Fei's seclusion ground. At this moment, runes began to revolve around Gu Fei's body, emitting an ancient and vicissitude aura. He had successfully reversed 1/3 of the ancient teleportation formation. However, to reverse the entire ancient teleportation formation was not something that could be done in a short period of time. At this moment, Jiyu Zhong, who was guarding outside Gu Fei's seclusion ground, suddenly opened his eyes. Why are there always flies coming to die? As he spoke, Jiyu Zhong stood up from the ground. He held the Thunder God's spear in his hand and took a step forward. In the next moment, he appeared in the sky above the City Lord's estate. A chariot appeared out of nowhere in the sky above the City Lord's estate. It was a chariot pulled by a flood dragon. There were 3 flood dragons in the quasi-saint realm. On the chariot stood a tall middle-aged man in purple immortal armor. Who the hell are you? Jiyu Zhong stared at the middle-aged man on the chariot and said indifferently, "Page, how many years has it been since someone dared to speak to me like this?" The middle-aged man looked at Jiyu Zhong and said coldly, "Is that so?" Jiyu Zhong didn't mind. "What's the point of talking to someone like you? I'll just kill you and go back to comprehend my grand Tao." As the middle-aged man spoke, he immediately attacked Jiyu Zhong. With a wave of his right hand, the shadow of a dragon rushed out from his hand and pounced towards Jiyu Zhong. Roar! The image of the dragon instantly grew bigger. It raised its head and roared, causing the entire world to tremble. A supreme true dragon's power burst out from the image of the dragon. True dragon force. Jiyu Zhong couldn't help but be shocked when he sensed this energy wave. To think that this fella would be able to unleash the true dragon force. Seems like this fella isn't a weakling. Kill. Jiyu Zhong waved the Thunder God spear in his hand. Like a long rod, he smashed it towards the huge dragon that was pouncing towards him. Powerful thunder and lightning power exploded on the divine spear. Bang! Chapter 2565. The mysterious expert suddenly appeared in the East Imperial City and charged to the sky above the City Lord's residence. Rumble! Lightning energy wreaked havoc as Jiyu Zhong attacked. The Thunder God spear in his hand turned into a dazzling lightning, instantly dissipating the true dragon energy unleashed by the mysterious expert. Roar! The roar of a dragon shook the sky. The dragon formed from the true dragon energy seemed to have a life of its own as it roared and dissipated in the sky, causing blood, flesh, and scales to splatter everywhere. Very good. Now it won't be so boring. The middle-aged expert on the chariot couldn't help but nod his head when he saw this. Jiyu Zhong was able to dissipate his attack and was worthy of him taking action. If Jiyu Zhong couldn't even withstand this attack of his, such an opponent couldn't even be considered an opponent. He could only be considered an ant that could be squashed to death. Who are you? Jiyu Zhong gripped the Thunder God spear and stared at the middle-aged expert on the chariot. His expression was incomparably solemn. This opponent was very strong. This person was able to pull his chariot with 3 quasi-saint dragons. One must know that quasi-saints were the strongest existences below the saint realm. Especially when the power of heaven's wrath hadn't disappeared, quasi-saints were the strongest existences. Since this middle-aged expert was able to pull his chariot with 3 dragons, his cultivation base must be incomparably strong. Who I am is not important. The middle-aged expert on the chariot looked at Ji Yuzhong and said. His eyes shone with a dazzling divine light, like 2 divine suns that were nurturing immortal runes. I don't think there's any grudge between us. Ji Yuzhong said as he tightened his grip on the thunder god's spear. Yes, there's no grudge. The middle-aged expert thought for a moment before replying. What? If there's no grudge between us, why did you come here to make me your enemy? Ji Yuzhong raged. There's no grudge, but there's karma. A junior asked me to help out once. Back then, I owed his ancestor a debt of gratitude. I can't do anything about it. The middle-aged expert said helplessly. Could it be those people from the Dongfang family? Ji Yuzhong's expression darkened. Hehe, you guessed wrong. They're from the Dongfang family. Even if their patriarch came personally, he wouldn't be able to invite me. The middle-aged expert smiled and shook his head. It can't be Tian Hong, right? Ji Yuzhong recalled the primordial Dao sect's ancient sage Tian Hong whom he had recently defeated. Other than the Dongfang family, only this primordial Dao sect's important figure wanted to deal with him. All right, it's hard to refuse a favor. Let's spar and go through the motions. As the middle-aged man on the chariot spoke, divine runes of the immortal Dao appeared faintly on his body. On his immortal armor, the shadows of incomparably powerful creatures appeared indistinctly. Ji Yuzhong was startled when he saw the image of the immortal armor on the middle-aged warrior. The countless beast phantoms eventually turned into 4 powerful phantoms. Roar! A huge dragon was roaring, emitting an extremely powerful aura of a true dragon. The 3 old dragons that were pulling the carriage immediately began to tremble in fear. True dragons were born to be a deterrent to flood dragons. Rumble! The void trembled. In front of the middle-aged cultivator, the phantom of a black tortoise appeared, and the entire world trembled under the pressure of this figure. It was as if this creature could crush the heavens and earth with a single flip. On the middle-aged warrior's right was a white tiger. A shocking baleful aura emanated from this white tiger that was as large as a mountain. Roar! The might of the white tiger's roar was enough to shatter the entire heaven and earth. Shu Chimen, even the chaos chi was forced out of his body. Below the middle-aged warrior was a divine bird that emitted boundless divine flames. This divine bird was the undying divine bird of the south, the vermilion bird. 4 spirits of heaven and earth. Ji Yuzhong couldn't help but be moved. This middle-aged man's immortal armor was incredible. It was actually the legendary 4-spirit immortal armor, an immortal sovereign's battle armor. I didn't think you would recognize my immortal armor. The middle-aged warrior was a little surprised. You are an immortal sovereign, or perhaps one of the earliest immortal sovereigns, the primordial immortal sovereign. As he spoke, Ji Yuzhong's body erupted with a heaven-shaking battle intent. The thunder god's spear in his hand vibrated. The Dao runes inside the spear turned into dazzling lightning that circulated around the spear's body. Brat, you really have a lot of questions. Come, if you can defeat me, I will tell you. The middle-aged warrior said with a smile. Very well, let's fight then. Ji Yuzhong didn't want to waste any more time. He moved the thunder god's spear to his left hand and pressed forward with his right hand. Golden Dao runes emerged on his right hand. Rumble! Space trembled and a huge golden hand appeared, slamming towards the middle-aged warrior standing on the chariot. Powerful ripples of power caused pitch-black spatial cracks to appear in the space enveloped by the huge golden hand. Heaven-encompassing palm. The eyes of the middle-aged warrior on the war chariot suddenly brightened. Then, he also reached out with his right hand and pressed towards the incoming golden hand. A huge purple hand appeared in the void, meeting Ji Yuzhong's golden hand head-on. Boom! With a loud bang, the 2 hands collided. Extremely powerful energy ripples spread out. The Dao runes of the martial path and the Dao runes of the immortal path interweaved and destroyed each other. The golden hand and the immortal hand dissipated in the void. The two forces cancelled each other out. Neither Ji Yuzhong nor the middle-aged warrior was able to suppress the other. Swoosh! Ji Yuzhong soared into the sky and displayed his extreme speed of 8 steps. With a single step, he instantly arrived above the middle-aged warrior and was about to stomp down. However, it was at this moment that the middle-aged fighter arrived before Ji Yuzhong. A purple fist smashed towards Ji Yuzhong, and an incomparably powerful force sent Ji Yuzhong flying. What? Ji Yuzhong's shock was no small matter. Even though the other party was strong, he had clearly underestimated this opponent. Kill! As Ji Yuzhong was sent flying, he roared in anger. 9 golden runes rushed out from his body, turning into 9 golden divine swords that pierced towards the middle-aged warrior. Every single golden sword exuded a majestic aura of the great Tao. You're going all out so soon? The middle-aged warrior couldn't help but feel surprised when he saw Ji Yuzhong displaying such a method. This little fellow was actually going all out, using the 9 Tao runes he cultivated to form swords to attack. Bzz, the middle-aged warrior stretched out his right hand and a purple roulette appeared in his hand. As the roulette spun, a heaven-devouring force gushed out from it. The 9 golden sword lights were actually absorbed by the purple wheel and obliterated by it. This, Ji Yuzhong rapidly retreated. He was incomparably shocked in his heart. His opponent was too strong. He was actually able to dispel his killer move so easily. Retract! The middle-aged fighter shouted at Ji Yuzhong. 9 immortal runes immediately appeared on the purple roulette, and each immortal rune shone with dazzling light. The power of the great Tao was boundless. The purple roulette displayed a terrifying might as though it wanted to devour the entire world, causing one's heart to palpitate. Ji Yuzhong, who was retreating, felt his body tighten. The heaven-devouring force from the roulette had already enveloped him. In the next moment, Ji Yuzhong was sent flying back towards the roulette. Rumble! Ji Yuzhong was both shocked and enraged. He directly used the Thunder God Spear. Rays of destructive lightning rushed out from the Thunder God Spear and bombarded the purple roulette. However, the roulette devoured everything. The rays of lightning that could tear the void were all devoured by the roulette in the middle-aged warrior's hand. Ji Yuzhong was incomparably shocked. One should know that the Thunder God Spear in his hand was a great saint tool. Although he couldn't fully unleash the power of this great saint tool, his attack was enough to force a saint to retreat. Little fellow, you're not bad. The middle-aged warrior smiled. Preposterous. Ji Yuzhong found it difficult to stabilize his body. His body involuntarily flew towards the purple roulette in his opponent's hand. He had no choice but to use his trump card. Swoosh! Ji Yuzhong's body suddenly turned blurry. It was as if he was about to escape into the void. After which, he flew backwards like an illusion. In an instant, he broke free from the devouring power that was spreading from the purple wheel. This is, on the war chariot, the middle-aged combatant couldn't help being shocked. He saw through the origin of this secret art that Ji Yuzhong had used. This secret art was extremely famous in ancient times and could be considered an undefeatable secret art. At this moment, Ji Yuzhong's blurry figure became solid once again. The 9 secrets of immortal path. The middle-aged warrior's expression turned solemn as he looked at Ji Yuzhong. The 9 secrets of immortal path wasn't an ordinary divine technique. It was a supreme secret technique created by the supreme Tao ancestor. Ji Yuzhong snorted coldly and didn't say anything. His eyes swept over the middle-aged warrior on the chariot like a bolt of lightning. His battle intent surged like a rainbow. Very good. A cultivator should advance courageously and be indomitable. The middle-aged warrior looked at Ji Yuzhong and nodded. Ji Yuzhong didn't say anything. He held the Thunder God Spear in his hand. His entire body was shrouded in golden light and an extremely powerful aura erupted from his body. You've cultivated more than one secret technique. The middle-aged warrior's eyes lit up again. Roar! Ji Yuzhong roared. Rays of golden light appeared around him like bolts of lightning. His aura soared and his chi and blood flourished like a primordial true dragon. The middle-aged warrior wasn't in a hurry to act. He quietly looked at Ji Yuzhong, allowing him to increase his strength. Rumble! A powerful force was released, causing the void around Ji Yuzhong to tremble. The potential of his martial physique was stimulated by the secret technique. It was as though the entire world couldn't contain this powerful martial physique. Chapter 2566. The pressure from the middle-aged cultivator was too great. Ji Yuzhong had no choice but to go all out. Bzz, the void trembled. Rays of golden light flowed around Ji Yuzhong's body like lightning, emitting a series of crackling sounds. Sky Ascension Secret Technique. What a surprise! The middle-aged cultivator standing on the chariot allowed Ji Yuzhong to increase his strength. He wasn't in a hurry to make a move. His lips curled into a smile. He was very confident. Eat my fist. At this moment, Ji Yuzhong's entire body was surging with energy. His entire body felt like it was swelling up. He had nowhere to vent his energy, so he had to vent it out. Boom! Ji Yuzhong directly punched the middle-aged warrior on the chariot. A violent force erupted and immediately shattered the sleeve on his right arm. His left hand held onto the Thunder God's spear as he punched out with his strongest fist, displaying an invincible fist intent. When the middle-aged warrior saw Ji Yuzhong unleashing such a punch, his countenance finally changed. Such a punch wasn't something that just anyone could unleash. This kind of invincible fist intent needed to be tempered thousands of times before it could become a kind of supreme battle intent. As Ji Yuzhong punched out, the space in front of his fist trembled as black spatial cracks appeared. Ji Yuzhong's fist was like a huge golden mountain as it pushed forward. Roar! Feeling the might of Ji Yuzhong's punch, the three-headed serpent that was pulling the chariot immediately felt uneasy. It roared continuously, its voice shaking the heavens and earth. Everyone in the East Imperial Kingdom could hear it. Who is that? To actually use three serpents to pull the chariot. The cultivators in the East Imperial Kingdom were all shocked to the extreme. The powerful aura emitted from the three serpents caused everyone's hearts to palpitate. The aura of the immortal Tao is boundless. That person must be an expert of the immortal Tao. Someone said something like that. Experts that could appear in the East Imperial Kingdom were most likely here to look for Ji Yufei and his disciple. This time, there was no exception. Ji Yuzhong, you're going to die this time. On a mountain peak outside of the East Royal City stood an old man with white hair and beard. This person was carefully restraining his aura. This person was the big shot from the primordial Tao sect that Ji Yuzhong had chased away, ancient sage Tianhong. Ancient sage Tianhong's status was very important in the Primeval Tao sect. However, in front of the middle-aged fighter, he was just a junior. The fighter was indebted to his ancestor. At this time, the middle-aged warrior stretched out his right hand to block the attack. His expression turned solemn. His opponent had used the Ascension secret technique, and the strength of his martial body had soared to a terrifying level. This kind of power could definitely compete with a sage at his peak. Buzz! The void trembled as immortal runes shot out from the middle-aged cultivator's hand, imprinting themselves onto the surrounding void. What? It was at this moment that Ji Yuzhong felt a powerful force surging over from the front. His fist had encountered an incomparably powerful resistance. The middle-aged combatant's right hand sealed the void between heaven and earth. Ji Yuzhong felt as if the void around him was about to solidify. He felt as if he was in a swamp, and his movements became sluggish. Roar! Ji Yuzhong let out an angry roar as his long hair danced wildly in the wind. His eyes became extremely sharp and his body burst with dazzling golden light. 9 golden runes appeared on his body, releasing an immortal aura of the Great Path. Just as Ji Yuzhong felt that his movements were normal, a fist appeared in front of him. Bam! His vision turned black as he was punched in the right eye. The powerful impact almost caused him to faint. Stars danced in front of him as he stumbled backward to avoid the attack. However, before he could stabilize his body, he felt another pain in his abdomen. He had been punched again. How is this possible? Ji Yuzhong was extremely shocked. He couldn't even see how his opponent had punched. This made him extremely shocked. His opponent's combat power had far exceeded his expectations. Kill. Ji Yuzhong shook the Thunder God spear in his hand, and a large amount of the power of thunder and lightning immediately bloomed from the thunder god's spear. In an instant, it covered a radius of 10,000 feet. Every bolt of lightning emitted a terrifying destructive aura, tearing the heavens and earth apart. There were lightning-shaped runes in the sea of thunder and lightning. However, a shadow of a dragon broke through the sea of thunder and pounced towards Ji Yuzhong, sending him flying. This dragon shadow was the Azure Dragon. The middle-aged cultivator was wearing the 4 spiritual immortal armor. This was a legendary immortal armor with a great origin. When wearing this immortal armor, there would be the protection of the 4 spiritual immortal armor. Ji Yuzhong spurted out a mouthful of blood. He held on to the thunder god's spear tightly as golden blood flowed from his hand. So powerful. Ji Yuzhong was sent flying thousands of feet away. His left hand that was holding onto the thunder god's spear was already a bloody mess. The power of the Azure Dragon's attack was extremely powerful. Even if he used the secret technique of ascension, it would still be difficult for him to resist it. How is this possible? Ji Yuzhong was shocked to the extreme. The toughness of his martial body was absolutely invincible among those of the same level. Furthermore, under the state of using the secret skill of ascension, the potential of his martial body was stimulated. The combat strength of his martial body was definitely multiplied. He couldn't accept this reality. The cultivators in the Eastern Royal City who were spectating from afar were also stunned by this scene. That immortal cultivator could actually suppress Ji Yuzhong. This was truly unbelievable. Is that person an immortal venerable? Someone asked. In their opinion, only the legendary immortal venerables could be a match for Ji Yufei and his disciple. However, immortal venerables weren't like ordinary cultivators. The power of heaven's wrath still exists. Even if an immortal venerable came, he wouldn't be able to do anything to Ji Yufei and his disciple. Someone voiced out his doubt. Rumble. At this time, the middle-aged cultivator finally moved. He took a step forward and instantly walked out from the war chariot. A powerful immortal pressure caused the entire heaven and earth to tremble. The silhouettes of 4 spiritual beasts appeared around him. Each of them emitted a powerful energy fluctuation. The 4 spiritual immortal armor was truly extraordinary. The middle-aged cultivator didn't even activate the armor, but it could defend against all attacks. Although you're strong, you're still not my opponent. Call your master out. The middle-aged cultivator pressed towards Ji Yuzhong. Immortal Tao energy surged from his body. His power was in a strange state and didn't exceed the limits of the mortal realm. However, the middle-aged cultivator could use this power to defeat Ji Yuzhong. Ji Yuzhong was both shocked and furious. However, he knew that the other party wasn't wrong. Even if he grasped the 9 secrets of immortal Tao, supreme arts were useless in the face of absolute power. Although he still had other immortal arts that he hadn't used yet, he knew that there was no need for them to be used. Who exactly are you? Ji Yuzhong was unwilling, but this person was truly undefeatable. No matter how strong his battle intent was, it was useless. The other party's overwhelming strength was the most important thing. Overwhelming strength was enough to make anyone despair. However, Ji Yuzhong didn't despair. His battle intent was still strong and didn't show any signs of depression. It's best if you don't know who I am. The middle-aged war chariot didn't want to reveal his identity. Don't tell me you're the legendary 4 spiritual immortal sovereign? Ji Yuzhong suddenly thought of something and exclaimed in shock. 4 spiritual immortal sovereign was one of the 9 primordial immortal sovereigns. He was the direct disciple of the supreme Tao ancestor and also the inheritor of one of the 9 secrets of immortal Tao, the godly seizing secret art. The supreme Tao ancestor had imparted the godly seizing secret art to 4 spiritual immortal sovereign. The middle-aged cultivator didn't say anything and continued to press towards Ji Yuzhong step by step. The entire heaven and earth trembled along with his footsteps. With each step, his aura grew stronger. When the middle-aged cultivator took 9 steps, the sky seemed like it was about to collapse. It was extremely terrifying. The Eastern Royal City below was affected as well. However, the city had its defensive formation. The middle-aged cultivator's aura was too powerful, causing the defensive formation to activate. Then, a layer of divine light enveloped the entire East Royal Palace, isolating the powerful pressure that descended from the sky outside. Ji Yuzhong was forced back again. He coughed up blood as the Thunder God's spear in his hand emitted dazzling lightning. Inside the spear, there were lightning-shaped Dao runes faintly appearing. For spiritual immortal sovereign. At this moment, a voice rang out in the Eastern Royal City's City Lord residence. A wave of divine sense spread out from the residence. So you're Ji Fei. The middle-aged cultivator stopped. You know who I am, yet you still dare to come here. Your courage is truly commendable. Ji Fei's divine sense spread out from the residence once again. I've come here specifically to meet you. Come out and fight. The middle-aged cultivator's gaze swept across the Eastern Royal City's City Lord residence. Soon, he found a rather special place in the residence. There was a faint ripple coming from that place. I see. The middle-aged cultivator seemed to have noticed something. 1 month from now, here and now, I'll fight you. Ji Fei was silent for a moment before he said such words. Very well, I'll wait for you for a month. After saying that, the middle-aged cultivator returned to the chariot. Then, the 3 old serpents that were pulling the chariot roared at the same time. They pulled the cultivator and charged into the sky, quickly disappearing into the horizon. He left just like that. Ji Yuzhong stood in the sky and scratched his head in confusion. Seeing this scene, the cultivators in the Eastern Royal City were dumbfounded, especially those from the Dongfang clan. It wasn't easy to find someone who could suppress Ji Yuzhong, but this mysterious man left just like that. What's going on?